if you could find brand new worlds right here on Earth, where anything is possible? Same planet, different dimension. I found the gateway.
The Rewatch podcast presents the Sliders Rewatch, dedicated to the series Sliders on Fox and Sci-Fi Channel. Join us each week as we continue crossing the Einstein-Rosen-Podolsky Bridge and find ourselves in strange new worlds. Email your thoughts on each episode to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or on Twitter @rewatchpod.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Sliders Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I'm a totally whiny, incompetent, solitaire-playing baby man who needs everyone's approval in order to feel important and good, and who, if you don't pay attention to, will destroy everything you hold dear by taking it out behind the barn and shooting it till it's dead. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, that's Bill Dial. That's not me. That's not me. Sorry, apologies.
Shut up, you big baby.
Sorry about that. Forgot who I was for a moment there.
Wow, yeah. We're here.
We are here. We made it.
The last two episodes of Sliders. Oh,
Yes.
let's look back. Better days.
Through the years.
Alright, well thank you for joining us, everybody. It's been a long road.
Oh, yes,
We
it
are
has.
here at the end, and we are discussing the last two episodes of Sliders, which are Eye of the Storm and the Seer. But we're not going out on a down note at all. Not to
We're
give
not?
too much away about what we think about the Seer. Stick around after our episode discussions because a little something extra. We're going to be discussing the original script by our good friend iReactions, Ibrahim Ing. He did write a script based on an idea that Tracy Torme had called Slide Effects.
Yes.
And we're going to be discussing that after our two episode discussions today. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. But
Oh, yeah. Very exciting.
yeah, let's get into this, our last two episodes. So
All right.
the first episode discussion today is Eye of the Storm. We have a teleplay by Chris Black with story by Chris Black and Eric Morris and directed by David Peckinpah. And this originally aired on January 28th of 2000.
Whenever you say that, directed by David Peckinpah, there's always like this shadow that I feel comes over the podcast. It's like dun dun dun. Okay.
Who was he?
He was me, my doppelganger, my alternate in this world.
You said that wasn't possible. You told me that the experiment that unstuck you destroyed all your alternate selves.
So I thought, until I met Oberon. He really threw a monkey wrench into my calculations, I have to say. Although apparently, he dealt with the shock of our chance encounter somewhat less effectively than I did. Please, sit.
You said you were expecting us. You bring us here?
Yes, but let me explain.
But you are still playing with people's lives. You're using these people here like lab rats. You're using us again. How dare you?
Please, Diana, it's not what you think. How embarrassing.
Dr. Geiger, what happened?
Being unstuck happened to me. It's like being trapped in the surf, pounded by wave after wave of space-time. As soon as you manage to pull yourself to the shore, the tide sucks you back under again.
What, so we're supposed to feel sorry for you? Let you just collapse an infinite number of parallel universes into one so you'll feel better.
You don't have to worry about that.
Why? Because you turned over a new leaf?
No. Because it won't work.
After an outing to an embarrassingly tiny torrential flood world, our sliders slide into a dimension surrounded by a bright orange vortex-like barrier that they soon learn is the work of their old nemesis, Dr. Geiger, who when they first encounter him, Diana is quick to admonish for his past mistakes, unwilling to help him, but eventually decides to give her trust again when he claims he can separate Mallory and Quinn. Remy and Maggie explore the city, learning that people tend to just disappear quickly only to return later as mangled versions of themselves, the result of Geiger's experiments. Geiger realized that his original plan of collapsing the multiverses together into one was not possible, and so ripped out a part of a dimension to create a small pocket world in which he could experiment on the people secretly, trying to merge with them in order to anchor himself properly in one universe. The two manage to stop Geiger from attempting to merge with Mallory, and he apologizes and says he can separate them, and tries properly this time, but realizes that the two have bonded together and cannot be separated without one of them dying. Remy decides that Quinn would not want that and shuts the procedure down as the few inhabitants of this world begin banging down the door, anxious for an escape from this world as the barrier closes in on them, threatening to kill them all. Geiger attempts to send them all back to their world, but is shot and killed, resulting in Diana throwing a switch and sliding with our sliders to safety.
How do we know he's not lying now?
We don't. He'd say anything to get us to help him.
Or maybe he's telling the truth.
How many times are we gonna let this man burn us?
Don't you mean burn you?
What?
You're so angry at this man that you wouldn't even believe him if he told you the Earth was round. Now what if he can really, really do this and we just walk away?
I am more qualified than anyone here to know if he can separate Mallory from Quinn.
Okay, then you tell us. Can he do it?
In theory, maybe. But it would take months, maybe years of rechecking his calculations to be sure.
Yeah. Anything you can do in 8 hours?
Real chance here of getting Quinn back safely and tracking Colin down too.
If Geiger's telling the truth.
Look, we know that there's something here that's hurting people. How do we know we're not going to disappear before we slide out of here?
Well, how do we know Geiger's not behind that too?
I say we do it. I'm the patient, right? It's my choice.
Mallory!
That's why we came, isn't it? Why we keep sliding? You promised Remy and Maggie you would do what you could to set things right. Well, now's your chance. You do this, then it's over. And we go home.
Okay, so a few points of trivia.
Okay, so now there was no deleted scenes because they didn't have a script for this one, but there's some stuff coming up here that we'll talk about with that. Originally, this was conceived not the way it was done, but as Sliders meets Casablanca. And they were going to be meeting people from previous slides who had been pulled into this pocket universe, and they were trapped, and it was about them trying to escape. How do they deal with this world? You know, all these different versions of people that they've met from other slides. I think that's a cool idea, you know, to see the people that they brought back. And we had one guy in here from before, but that would have been neat to see, like, other characters, you know, trapped in this world trying to escape, you know, and then revisiting with our sliders.
Could you imagine if, like, Logan Sinclair was there or something like that? Like,
yes, exactly.
Just mind blown.
I mean, I could see her working with Geiger easily, especially when he would mention, like, the sliders. She'd be like, "Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you." But the thing was, like, the production didn't even like the Casablanca aspect. They didn't like that. But they bought it anyway. You know, they needed a script, so they bought it. And when filming time came, they just rewrote it. You know, there was no money to buy a new script at that point, so they just went ahead and let's rewrite this to fit what we want. And that's when they lost the focus on the people in the world, on the inhabitants, like, you know, would have been our past people that Sliders met, and they put the focus on Geiger and splitting Quinn up. You know, which really I thought we were done with splitting the Quinns up after that world where, you know, Mallory went with the cult. You know, I thought that was done. So it's like, why are they bringing it up? Whatever. So yeah, that's what happened, which is too bad. I would have liked the original idea for this, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So now the epic finale that we kept talking about, how they were, you know, squirreling away money, you know, for the epic finale. Well, that never happened. You know, they were supposed to go back to Earth Prime, and they were supposed to be fighting Cro-Mags, all right? But they decided to get rid of that idea, and that comes up in trivia in the next episode. They just decided to put all that money into this episode. And it's not like they went and rewrote the script to include more effects that would require more money. They just took the money and used it more on the effects that they had in place, which really was not much. It was like that big surrounding barrier vortex and like, them trying to split the Quinn. So they put all their money into those two little bits and pieces there when, originally the idea was to have this pretty massive like war, I guess, So that's kind of disappointing that all the money that all the cost cutting corners that they did for this whole season really didn't come to anything.
It's such a shame. I mean, they could have easily have put the money into just a big two-parter or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
To make it seem more epic than it was, If they weren't going to try and be epic, at least do a big two-part story or something like that to make you just feel like the money was spent to do something interesting.
Because, this episode really, besides the fact that they get the coordinate disc at the end, this could have been anywhere, really. It didn't have to be next to last. So there was also extensive negotiation with Jerry O'Connell's lawyer to use his face. And that's why when they're trying to split Mallory from Quinn, you can actually see Jerry O'Connell's face for like a split second. They took footage. They used the footage from, what did they say, Genesis?
Well, I thought it was Fever when they had him in that tank and they were spraying him down. Looking for the Q virus?
Yeah, no, when I was looking into what they said, they said it was from when he was being tortured in the one, I think it was it Genesis? I think it was Genesis, when he was being tortured by the Cro-Mag or something.
Oh, he had those like triangle things on his temple.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So they took that, and just, overlaid it there. And they said, unfortunately, they were able to do that, but all this negotiation, allowing them to use Jerry's likeness and voice, that happened way too late for them to actually use him, like for the season premiere, like we said, when the guy says go, we see the backs of them, it's like they came to an agreement, but just too late to actually benefit the rest of the season.
Oh, there it is. I guess we got time for a quick impression.
Alrighty.
Cue the music.
Alan Rickman, Kermit the Frog, Tony Todd, and Arturo walk through a small village while thunder rumbles. O Kahiro, mighty and powerful spirits of the heavens, hear my plea!
Stop that already.
Would you chill? I'm appeasing the gods!
God, this... Oh, why did I ever do this voice?
Looks to me like you're pissing them off.
I'm telling you, you cannot affect the weather by smearing yourself with bear scat and prancing around a campfire in your underpants.
It was a good look for him, though.
By the power of Kahiro, I command the elemental spirits to stop! The thunder stops. That's right. The thunder starts to rumble again as villagers scream and flee.
Oh, crap.
And scene.
Oh, that was good.
Yes. Fun times.
Where is she?
She was right behind us.
Everything okay?
Yeah, everybody's back where they belong.
And Geiger?
He's gone. For good this time.
Can I have the PDL?
What's that? I don't know. Oh my God.
What is it?
The way home.
All right, let's get into our discussion of Eye of the Storm. We get a previously on Sliders on this one, right?
That was odd.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was just like a random Netflix thing, like someone just forgot to take that off the the top or something when they were putting the episodes up or something. But it does give us that whole thing about how Mallory felt that Quinn was gone.
Right, exactly.
So they're setting us up for something. But yeah, that was just so weird. It was that we never get a previously on Sliders at the top.
Yeah, never.
So as you heard in our quick impression, it opens with Mallory like totally in on this like appeasing the gods bit.
Right.
Now, I've heard of a flash flood, but that was quick.
I know. It's like, it started, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. A flood, how hopefully they get out of here before it gets too high, the water gets too high. And then, like, it's just gone. It's just gone.
It's obviously just some setup that's, like, on the Universal backlot or something.
Exactly, yeah.
So they're like, let's just turn on the water and have a flood. But it's like they couldn't keep it flooded.
I mean, they should have put some money into that, It's like, why did they put some extra into that? Because that was like, that was sad. That was just sad.
Yeah, it just sort of like, it just starts coming down. And then the next thing they're like, whoa.
I know.
I know. Whatever.
I know. It was just, it was crazy. I think, didn't they say that was the Universal Tour area, or was that the actual backlot?
Well, it's one or the other.
Okay, because if that was the tour area, that's really a way to really cheapen. Just go to where they give tours to people and let's film a scene there.
Exactly. It's the thing where the long cart full of people pulls up, and then the water comes down, and everyone goes, ooh,
Right, exactly. So that was just, come on. If you're saving your money up and you're using it for this episode, just do something here, because that was this total, like, oh, it's going to be dangerous. No, it's not, It's all
exactly, yeah. They're setting up this thing about, like, maybe the gods on this world are real because Mallory's appeasing them with his weather chant.
Right, yeah.
And it's just silly. But they do set up here that the replacing of the gem erased coordinates.
Oh, yes.
And we were discussing that, is it just a power source? Was it storing coordinates? We talked about that at length in our previous couple of episodes. So they actually set that up here. All the coordinates were stored in that gem, and replacing it has now gotten rid of it. And Remy's a little down and out about that, He's not sure if he's ever going to get home. So, bringing something like that in at this point doesn't really make sense.
Right.
They're going to bring it up about him getting back home in the next episode. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like it was needless to have them lose the coordinates to Earth Prime.
No, I'm with you on that. It's like trying to create extra drama where, nobody needed it.
Exactly. So they slide, and they end up in this world that seems to be, like, collapsing in on itself. And Dr. Geiger's there. Now, it took them a while to figure out it was Dr. Geiger, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It was very odd. Like, we could see who it was, but he sort of, like, tried to, like, cover his face with his hand or something.
Yes.
So they couldn't quite tell it was him. But, like, as soon as he was on screen, I was like, oh, shit, Dr. Geiger's here.
Exactly, yep.
He seems, like, repentant or something like that. He ends up killing himself by running into this wall of power or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, yeah.
Were you happy to see Dr. Geiger back?
I was like, I guess, after seeing both episodes, for some reason, I thought that Dr. Geiger would be in both episodes and that he was like the big baddie. I thought that he was going to be the Seer or something. So at first I was like, oh, he's back. And I was like, all right, this is cool. Maybe he's, I didn't realize it was just going to be a one episode thing. So ultimately disappointed,
And it does go back to what I was saying. Like, why isn't this a big two-parter?
Yes, exactly.
With Dr. Geiger as the bad guy. He was set up as the bad guy at the beginning. He came back in the second episode. He disappeared. And then they bring him back in the second to last episode? Like, why?
Just to wrap up some loose ends, tie it up with a bow.
Yeah, and it's the fact that David Peckinpah directed this, you think he would be in charge of the big finale.
Right.
Instead, as we'll find out, the next episode is directed by some random who we don't know.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, it's just weird that this is the second to last episode, and why this story doesn't carry over into the big finale. Makes no sense. But, of course, they hold up in the Chandler. They got 18 hours to the slide, and they meet up with the concierge there.
Right.
This big a-hole named Stu.
Yes.
Played by Jay Asavone, who we've seen before.
I know.
He was Dr. Tassler in Soul Survivors, the zombie episode, and he was also Ben Siegel III in Way Out West.
Yeah, it was fun to see him.
Again, they're bringing him in. They're giving him a different name. Why? They couldn't give him a name of someone else that we've already seen.
Exactly.
Tassler.
Why couldn't it have been
Siegel.
Tassler? Yeah, exactly. Now, I put this in here because I once again, I wrote it down. I forget where it came, but Remy does actually call him Fogboy. He does call Mallory Fogboy, and it makes more sense now in this episode because they're referring to how he doesn't quite remember, like when he comes out. I mean, it must have been later that he called him Fog Boy when he was trying to get merged or something, but like he wasn't quite all there in his head for a moment. And he calls him Fog Boy.
All right, yeah, I still didn't get it.
I pick it up because when he says it, like when he makes the comment, I'm like, what was that? Why does he, And I forget. I should write down. I should have written down exactly where it happened. But somewhere in the episode, he does call him Fog Boy again, not Farm Boy, but Fog Boy, and it's because he's supposed to have two people in his head, right? And it's just, I guess that's why he came up with the Fog Boy idea. I don't know. But it's in there. Promise you it's in there.
Well, at this point, I really don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, because like everybody there is going crazy. They're all very suspicious of these new arrivals, where'd they come from and all that. But Remy's like, well, Diana here is a scientist and we can help you. We can figure this out. But Stu is like super suspicious. So Maggie just like smacks him in the face.
Right.
Worst people skills ever. These people are terrified, and you're just going to go around punching people.
Right. Well, isn't this where he takes like the timer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, you know what? She's like, you know what? I'm not going through this. She's like, I have enough people stealing the timer all the time. Heck with this. Boom. Just punch him. Take it back. Done with you, Stu.
But Remy starts to wonder about what Geiger said about mercy and all that when they were out in the streets. And he thinks this dimension could literally be hell.
That was weird. I don't know why going there. It's like that's like this. It's not. You did not slide into hell. That's not how. That's not how it works. And for a man of faith like Remy, it's like, come on, really? That's not how you're going to get there.
Yeah, and they do try to link up all these religious aspects because Stu is talking about the man upstairs. You got to talk to the man upstairs. Turns out to be a literal man who is upstairs.
Yes.
Turns out to be Geiger.
Yep.
He's just hanging out up there doing his science stuff, and nobody seems to bother him. I mean,
why did he set up in the Chandler?
I don't know.
Like why not? Why didn't he take a piece of the world that had like a lab? Instead he's holed up in a suite at the Chandler working on his experiments with all the machines, everything that he brought there. It's like, that was not forward thinking.
Yeah, and they bring up this thing about how all of his alternates were destroyed during his experiments. I don't know if they set that up in the premiere or not.
I don't remember. I can't remember now. It's been so long. If they said that or not. I know he said that there was no way for him to be in one dimension. I remember that. But I don't remember saying anything about his alternates.
I think it was destroyed. Yeah, it was a plot contrivance because they're going to get in this whole thing about merging with people and whatnot.
Right.
But it turns out there were at least two other versions of him. One of them who just killed himself, and then another one that's going to show up later.
Yeah.
But yeah, somehow Geiger has safe harbor here in this dimension.
Yes.
And he wants Diana's help, but she's a bit like, nah.
Yep.
I don't think so.
That's the right way to be, like after what he did.
Yeah, she does come around pretty quickly, though. Because Stu tries to kidnap Diana, but Maggie, punches him again.
Again. He's just a punching bag for her this episode.
And Mallory and Diana discuss whether or not they owe Geiger anything. Because, I don't know, Mallory's kind of like, maybe I do owe him. He did help me get out of the wheelchair after all.
Yeah.
But Diana's like, no, we can't trust him. Then Remy and Maggie, they sort of maybe we should help him. I mean, he is, the scientist who is kind of the expert on this. It's all a big back and forth. But of course, Diana comes around and says, even though I am suspicious of you, I'm going to help you. And of course, they have to go out and do some recon. And Remy and Maggie are stealing cash again.
Yes.
I figure the bank doesn't need it. But they come across this woman named Sharon. And they set up this whole thing about these people who just, disappear into thin air. And then they come back and they're all messed up. And I don't know. This little side tangent, what do you reckon?
I just didn't, I didn't care. Who's this woman, Sharon? And, they go through this story with her a little bit. And it's I don't know. In the end, she was not that important to the whole plot. I'm like, whatever, Sharon. I didn't even remember her name. When I was going through the messages in time, there was something about Sharon, which we'll read later, and I was like, who the heck was Sharon? I'm like, oh, was it that lady? It must have been that lady. It's like, okay, all right, we'll go with it.
And I think we were saying this a couple episodes back about that random maintenance guy. What was his name? Hal?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like how he just gave like a full backstory for himself and stuff, and we're just like, why is this person talking right now? It was the same with Sharon. Like she opens up with Remy about her life as a cop and stuff, and it's like, oh, you know, we need to get to know Sharon a little bit so Remy can be like, oh yeah, maybe I will help you and these people who have come back all messed up.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, I don't think we're going to see her again past this episode, so I'm done. Done with you, Sharon. Don't care. Sorry about your Mr. Morris or whatever that you had to shoot and kill, but don't really care.
Exactly. But, you know, getting away from that, yes, Geiger's all about like, hey, look, I can separate the Quins. So let's do this.
See, like I said, I don't get why they even like went down this path, because we already established that Quinn is gone. You know, that's what we said. Quinn is gone. There's no, and everyone believes it. You know, everyone believes it. Maggie accepted it like instantly. She's like, oh, well, I like the new Mallory. You know, it's like, this is your husband in the bubble universe for, 30, 40 years. Okay, fine. You know, Remy's the only one who didn't really buy it. It's like, why are we even, giving this thing any thought? It's like, come on.
The fact that he's going to do it starts to like accelerate the collapse of this world as well. So that gives like more credence to what Remy and Maggie are doing with Sharon. So it's like, oh, we're gonna get all these people out of here, but there's this one guy who's like super violent, so we have to separate him. We're gonna go back for him.
Right.
Turns out to be another Geiger who's all messed up. This sort of leads them to believe that like Geiger's up to no good, and of course he is up to no good, because instead of separating Mallory and Quinn, he's actually just trying to murder them. He's like, he gets like a slap on the wrist for it, just like bang.
Exactly. They're like, that was bad. He goes, okay, I'll do it right this time.
I'm sorry. I had to try. Like, I wouldn't be the bad guy if I didn't try.
Exactly.
I'll really do it this time.
I'm really new at this, yes. I'm doing this bad guy stuff. Give me a break, guys. It's season 5. I've only had 3 episodes. I thought, as soon as he suggested splitting them, I was like, oh, he's up to something. Because I was going along with the thing that Quinn was not coming back at all. There was no chance of it, And so when he suggested, I'm like, oh, he's not really going to separate them. I knew right away.
He even brings up, like, he's like, no, they're like too merged with each other. Like, one of them would die if I did this, so let's not do it. And I definitely can't help Colin. And you're like, okay, right?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for that 2-second explanation of not helping Colin.
Because I forgot about him, too. I'm like, oh, whatever. He's gone. They're gone, It's like they're bringing up this stuff that, like, really, I think at this point, I don't know. I think most knowledgeable fans were probably like, well, they're probably not coming back, And, like, the ones who would post on the forums, they knew they weren't coming back because they had, like, the inside information, I didn't even know.
Yeah, but, at least they managed to work out the red tape to get the likeness of Jerry O'Connell so they could have an all right looking effect, of the trying to separate and stuff like that, even if it was just footage from another episode. It's like, where, can I pinpoint which episode that footage is from?
Right. I wish they had kept the whole Quinn/Mallory thing going for the whole season with him switching back and forth. I think that would have been great. I know that Rob Floyd has said that he would have loved that, because he liked that idea that they were both in there struggling for dominance. I think that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Even if they hadn't brought him back, like if they hadn't, like it was, even if they couldn't bring Quinn back at the end, still, it's cool to think that they were in that body trying to fight for dominance, and he could have come back, come to the surface at any time. It was cool.
Yeah, it did seem like a weak excuse at the time where they were like, well, we're going to sort of write this out because we can't trust the freelancers to sort of carry this over or something like that. And you're just like, come on, man. Like, we know Dameron's getting in there and doing rewrites and blah, 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 blah. He could have sprinkled in stuff to do with Mallory and tapping into Quinn and whatnot. Could have kept it going for the whole season and then, maybe wrapped it up here.
Yeah.
Or in the last episode or whatever.
Would have been much more satisfying.
Exactly. They're ready to slide, and all the people at the hotel bust in because they've been freaking out, and Stu shoots Geiger. And I was like, I really don't care if he dies right now.
Exactly.
I really, it's not even like heroic or something. Like, oh, I took a bullet for you, so I'm a good guy now.
Exactly.
No. He hands Diana a disc as he dies, and she goes ahead and activates Geiger's machine to send everybody home out of this collapsing world. And they get to the next world, and Diana joins the other sliders, and she puts the disc in her little device thingy. Her PDL. And dramatically exclaims, "Oh my God, it's the way home."
And scene.
So, yeah, I don't know. It was, yeah, I didn't like this episode, really. It was all blah.
I think, it doesn't deserve to be the penultimate episode.
No.
You know? It should have been somewhere else, and it would have been fine, you know? But, like, we're expecting more because it's the end of the season. And, like, we shouldn't expect more because last season's end of the season was not exactly great either. You know, the last scene of them just leaping through on the train with the vortex following the train. It's like, you know, it's like we shouldn't expect more, but we do. You know, we have high standards.
Especially since it's very common knowledge at this point that this is the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, let's start wrapping stuff up, man. Let's be a bit more epic about this. I mean, come on.
Epic. That's a good... Yeah, it was not as epic as it should have been.
And now, another episode of That's Random with Remy.
All right, let's get it over with.
This has been another episode of That's Random with Remy.
Speaking of not being as epic as it should be...
Yeah, let's get into our second episode discussion. The episode is titled The Seer. And this is written by Keith Dameron and directed by random guy. Oh, he does have a name. Paul Cajero.
Haven't we seen him before?
I don't remember if we have. I don't know. Random director number 3.
Right.
And this originally aired on February 4th of 2000.
Oh my God. I just realized why I know the name Paul Cajero. Because we just did that name in the previous quick impression. We just did that. Great Cajero.
They were talking him up in the previous
my
episode
God.
because he has to direct the series finale.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There you go. I was like, I know that name from somewhere. Where the heck do I know that name from? There you go.
First off, understand that we are not responsible for your being here.
Really? You always hold Sliders pep rallies and we just coincidentally happen to land in the middle of one?
We didn't bring you here, but we did know that you were coming.
Daughter, perhaps it's time that I should take over. My friends, I have been observing your exploits for some time.
Someone forgot to give Grandpa's medicine again.
Ironically, Mr. Mallory, there's a grain of truth in that. You see, some years ago, I had a massive heart attack. I wasn't expected to survive. But finally, when I did recover, I found that along with a very much weakened heart, I also had developed a strange new ability.
New ability?
Yes, I began to see visions, images of all of you and of your companions. After a time, I realized these weren't just hallucinations. I was seeing genuine events in space and time.
Professor, the term is remote viewing. It's seeing something in your mind from a remote location.
Yes, well, call it whatever you will. Eventually, I learned to see out into interdimensional space. And somehow, my consciousness seemed to latch onto your little group.
So you began painting pictures of what you saw.
That's right.
And then we began to share what we knew of you with our world. It was through the paintings of my father and through his writings. It didn't take long before stories of your travels became popular lore.
Especially after the Cro-Mags came. And you inspired many of us to fight them.
The Cro-Mags were here. Until we defeated them with a synthetic virus that was engineered by our scientists.
I think the phrase is, we sent them packing.
The Sliders, using Dr. Geiger's coordinates, slide into what they thought was Remy's homeworld, but find their slide mysteriously diverted into a world that has been following the Sliders' exploits for years via a man named Mark LeBeau, otherwise known as the Seer, who has been psychically seeing their adventures and translating them into books, TV series, and other merchandise. Mark warns them that he doesn't know how they were brought here, but that he has a vision that their next slide will result in instant death, and thus they cannot slide and must remain here or die. They end up meeting Quinn Prime's mother, who was abandoned here when the Cro-Mags escaped, driven away by a virus the humans developed and carry inside their bloodstream, inspiring Remy to want the virus to take back to his homeworld when they slide. The Seer's daughter, Claire, implores them to stay when she learns that they still plan to slide, trying to woo them with their celebrity status and riches that could be available to them here, but to no avail. The time comes to slide, the sliders activate the vortex and jump through, but are blocked by a force field while the vortex eventually closes and the timer resets. They confront the Seer, but he claims to have no knowledge of the force field, leading the sliders to suspect Claire as being the mastermind behind it. Remy and Maggie go to a Sliders Club meeting, and after bonding with the members, their leader draws his own blood out for the team to take with them to use to synthesize the Cro-Mag virus. Meanwhile, Diana and Mallory return to the hotel to find Mrs. Mallory being attacked. A fight ensues, and during it, the timer is crushed and broken, but Mrs. Mallory leads them to Claire's secret stash of Cro-Mag tech. They manage to turn off the tech that was blocking their vortex, but are confronted by Claire, whose ultimate goal was to have them help her create a religion based on sliding. The Seer shows up, throwing a wrench into Claire's plans as the sliders overpower her and the guards, with the Seer succumbing to his failing health in the aftermath. Diana uses the Cro-Mag tech to open a vortex, but it only has enough power to let one person slide through. Remy injects the virus into himself and slides through, as Maggie, Mallory, and Diana are left behind to wonder if Remy died as the Seer predicted, or if he survived.
Dear friends, fellow sliders, before we adjourn to the dining room, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our leader, the Seer.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is indeed a joyous occasion. The young people, the heroic young people that I have been viewing from afar are finally here with us. Now, as you know, I have seen a future for our friends which is indeed bleak. Certain death lies for them beyond their next slide. However, I'm very happy to tell you that our friends have decided to remain with us and to help us lay the foundation for our new order, Slidology, the ideological discipline for tomorrow.
What does this guy think he's doing?
I think this would be the business part his daughter spoke of.
Seems we're the only silent partners.
Before I propose the toast, I would like to ask our honored guests just to say a few words.
Not this group, come on. Thank you. Good night.
Okay, so a fair bit of trivia here on this episode, right?
Yeah, so now the whole thing about this whole script, which you can see over at earthprime.com, is that most of the scenes were a little bit longer, you know, a little bit more for the opening of the scenes, a little more for the closing of the scenes. And it's just like extra lines here and there. There was nothing real like major that changed the story at all. It's just little touches of color, if you will, you know, to just flesh it out a little more. Or some would say to pad it out a little more. Anyway, the original opening scene was going to be a lot longer. Like instead of starting with Maggie actually eating, it was going to start with them talking somewhere on the street, you know, about the coordinates and how this will take us home. And then Rembrandt says, well, I'm going to go over here. And Maggie says, well, I'm going to go over here, you know, and they leave. And then Mallory and Diana are talking. And Mallory says, you know, they seem really down, you know, like, shouldn't they be excited? We're going home, you know, or they're going home. And Diana says, well, I don't think they're down, you know, they're not sad. It's more bittersweet. You know, Remy's going home without a Cro-Mag weapon. So, you know, he's going back empty-handed, you know, and Mallory's like, well, why is Maggie? Why would she stay with Remy? You know, and, you know, it's like, well, that's her only family now. You know, like her whole world is gone. So like, you know, it's like little things that they sort of talked about, you know, but it's just extended a little bit here. When they get to the Seer's house, what they were going to do was a typical thing you see in, like, you know, stories where the heroes are left in a room alone and then the main guy comes walking in on their conversation. So basically they were brought by Claire and the Seer to the house Then they put him into this room, and the Sliders are all looking at these paintings that the Seer has put on the wall. So you see a bunch of their past, exploits, and they're talking about da 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 da. And then Claire walks in, like she does in the normal episode. So just a little extra. It might have been neat to see the paintings. I think of their past, the past slides, but still not not really necessary. At the reception, right, where they go, Remy's like, what is this place? And she says, the center. She starts talking about how it's the center of all that is good and how the Sliders have been so inspirational. And, Remy says something like, this sounds like a cult. Again, just another extra line or two than what we got. When Mallory meets Mrs. Mallory, there's a little bit more anger in Mallory. Like, he's just angry that they're still talking about Quinn Prime. It's like, he's not here anymore. He's mad, because they keep bringing it up. He's him, Maggie and the others, when they leave the center, when they walk out on the big announcement or whatever, when they walk out, we actually get a scene of Maggie telling the guards, you guys need to get a life. Because they were guarding them from trying to leave. And she says, you guys get a life. And they walk out. And it kind of reminded me of Star Trek when Shatner was telling, on Saturday Night Live, he says something to the fans like, get a life. It's just a TV show,
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's what it reminded me of. I'm not sure if they were trying to pay tribute. I doubt it. But there was a scene of them after they get out of the reception. The fans were calling out questions, because they were outside. They couldn't afford to get inside the, the special reception that they were at. And so they were saying, like, Remy, how did it feel when you were strangling a Cro-Mag? Maggie, did you have relations with the president? Like they were just talking about all the stuff from the previous episodes, Because, it makes sense. They are fans, just like Star Trek fans, would be like, Kirk, how did you get out of the da-da-da-da,
Yeah.
It's it actually reminds me of Galaxy Quest, when they're asking, Captain, how did you manage to solve the equation? It's a TV show, So yeah, it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
There was a scene with Vernon. We meet Vernon at the reception. He comes up and introduces himself real quickly before taking Miss Mallory away. But in the original script, he was going to actually go to their hotel room and hide, like in the closet or something. And when they come back to the hotel room, he sort of pops out and says, "Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Vernon Beckenbaugh." And it's like, okay, and Remy's like, "Get out, get out of here." It would have been a little comedic thing.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That sounds like it would have been funny.
Yeah. So when the fans were outside the hotel, when they were getting ready to slide out, it was supposed to be at night. It was going to have a candlelight vigil, and all the people were going to be singing "Tears in My Fro." Very, very nicely and softly. Yeah. So there you go. That would have been. I want to see that.
Yeah.
So they actually explained the bubble universe to Mallory and Diana, and why they would like to take Miss Mallory along as well, because she is Maggie's stepmom. They don't really talk about it that much in the actual show, but this was a point that they made. Said, yeah, that's why they want to take Miss Mallory along, because she's the stepmom. Why not?
Well, I think Maggie actually calls her mum at one point.
Yeah, that's right.
She does. Like it's a force of habit or something like that.
To me, I don't know. When she said that, I was just like, yeah, that sounds weird. It's just
it was a little bit weird.
It's just odd. There was another character that was cut from the script. It was the assistant Wayne that was going to, try to be a part of the show there. But yeah, just like, he didn't really have much to say. It was just, a line or two here or there. And it's like, let's just get rid of him. And that's probably the right decision. There was nothing memorable about what he did to the story at all. So again, you can check that out yourself if you want to see for yourself. Claire says that the Seer introduced her to a way of life that she's not willing to give up, which she didn't say that in the episode proper, did she?
No, she seemed just more like a greedy bitch.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because I was like, when I saw this, I was like, oh, I thought she said something like that, but no, it was just, yeah, this is a little bit different, and that's why, she wanted this religion so bad. She just wanted to keep this way of life going. So. There's that. And then finally, we come with Mrs. Mallory actually becomes a hero in this original script. She's the one who hammers away, punches the guard with a medkit box at the end, which starts the distraction, which causes them to be able to overcome the bad guys. Okay, so that was the deleted scenes. Here is the actual behind-the-scenes trivia. And this is what led to me coming up with my intro the way I did. Basically, Bill Dial was angry, and we know this, because that he was angry that Sci-Fi could care less, about this show that he was given. And so it was Bill Dial's decision to end the series on a cliffhanger so that people would get mad and attack Sci-Fi with, fan letters of support and phone calls. He was hoping for this huge deluge, probably the way like Star Trek was back in the day, the original series, how it was canceled and there was this huge fan letter, campaign. But in this case, just nobody cared. Nobody cared that Bill Dial ended on a cliffhanger. So,
and if they were going to blame anybody, it wasn't going to be Sci-Fi. It was going to be Bill Dial.
Exactly. I could see how some people are, because like I said, I was not big into the internet yet, and I've been like, why is Sci-Fi doing this? And then now I understand. It goes beyond just the the company. It's the people behind the show, the writers and directors and things like that. They just didn't care. Sci-Fi was like, whatever, oh, we got more Sliders fan mail. All right, we'll put it in that circular file over there. Thank you. So at this point, Sci-Fi was experimenting with low budget shows, and it was basically making one worker do the work of three, and that could have been great. Well, great in quotes, it would have led to a low budget season, like a new season 6 with Remy and one additional guest star is what they were thinking. It would just be the two of them. But this low cost method was shut down, rightfully so, by the union, because they're like, you can't make one person do the work of three. That's not,
The way it works is that this person has this job, this person has this job, this person has this job.
Yeah. So that was shut down. I mean, it would have been it would have been interesting to have seen, a low budget 6th season, low budget season 6 with Remy, just sliding away, somehow fixing the timer, meeting up with someone who would slide with him. But then, it'd be like, well, when are we going to get back to the other guys? What about Maggie? What about Remy or Mallory and Diana? So it would have been just more of what we got in season 5, just been like, well, where's Colin? What about, Quinn? What about Wade? All this other stuff. So it's kind of good. It didn't happen like that. The original episode actually had Geiger fooling the Sliders again. So see, the original way they were going to do it was Geiger was going to be there again, tampering with the timer, and he was trying to use it to get him back to reality so he wouldn't be unstuck anymore somehow. And so the Sliders would get control of Geiger, and they actually were able to collapse all the realities into one, where the Cro-Mags were destroyed. Well, they were cast out. So basically destroyed, but cast out from this universe. And there was only going to be one universe, which means no more sliding because there's no more multiverse. So somehow they were going to be able to do that with the timer and what Geiger had done with tampering with it, which I don't know how they would have explained, but that would have been a more satisfying ending, I think, than
Well, and it would have bridged the two episodes together.
Exactly.
So, nah.
They would have had to rewrite the last episode so that he survives or something. But still, the ending of the last episode, they would have to rewrite that so he survives, so it would be like a two-parter. But still, yeah, I would have liked that. The one thing that I thought was interesting was that Clavant wanted to have a cliffhanger, because he said, it leaves things open for however the fans want to see it. Maybe Rembrandt got home. Maybe he found Quinn. Maybe he found Wade and the professor. He could be anywhere now. So it's up to you to decide. It leaves it open for you. It's so he was happy with that. iReaction said in his trivia that, well, mostly the fans have forgiven Clavant for saying that. It's like, we understand where you're coming from, but really, no, it was not.
No.
It was not.
Yeah.
And then finally, this is a little bit of fun from John Rhys Davies here. I guess John Rhys Davies was at a convention, and someone asked him, Mr. Davies, what's your favorite episode of Sliders? My favorite episode of Sliders? The last one, because it was the last one.
He could have given a proper response, though.
Yeah, he could have. It
was the atom bomb episode. It was all about me.
Yes.
Well, while we're doing impressions, shall we get in a quick impression?
Yes. Let's do it.
Cue the music.
Remy, Arturo, and Kermit the Frog sit around a table. Well, this is it. All we have to do is call up the coordinates, punch them into the timer, and then we're off to our homeworlds. Thanks to Dr. Geiger! So, any plans after our triumphant return? Wait, I know. And the Nobel Prize goes to Kermit the Frog. Come on down. You know, a few months ago, that sounded great. But I don't know. After everything we've done, everything we've seen, somehow it seems wrong to get a prize for it. Well, for me, a hammock, a blender, and an endless supply of margaritas come to mind. What are you eating?
It's a giraffe sandwich and pork soda. It's not that bad. Do you want to try some?
The word why comes to mind.
Well, because this is our last chance to take a bite out of the bizarre and unusual. From now on, the expected is what you get, and the unexpected is just a memory.
Very poetic. I think I'll take one of those margaritas now. And see.
Wrapping it up.
Yes.
I guess we both have some apologizing to do. I'm sorry. There's something else I have to tell you. I do feel somehow connected to you. At first, I denied the feelings because I was afraid that if I didn't, I would lose myself, my identity. There is a small part of your Quinn inside of me. And I think he wants you to know that to him, you aren't just a stepmother. You raised him. You loved him. For that reason, you're more his mother than any blood relative could be. He loves you very much.
Alright, so let's get into our discussion of the final episode, The Seer. As you just heard, Maggie is enjoying a giraffe sandwich and pork soda, and the group prepares to head back to their respective worlds, and Maggie decides she's going to go with Remy. So, I think this makes sense. Like, we've seen it before, like, they've asked her, like, what would she do, and blah, 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 and occasionally she said, like, oh, maybe I'll just keep sliding by myself, or whatever. I don't know what to go back to. I kind of like that she has decided that she would stay with Remy.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've had good interactions this last season. Like, they are very close. Like, their characters have become much closer, and, they've been together the longest together.
We get a close-up on Diana's PDL here as well.
Yes, which I had always wondered about. Like, maybe I just never paid attention to it before. I've never seen it up close, but we really get up close this time. And there's, like, no keyboard on it. It's like a screen, and there's these 12 blinking LED lights. Like, I don't know how she inputs anything, because she's always using that little pen, to, like, poke away at it. I'm like, what? How does this thing work? Like, there's nothing on there. I'm like, why is there no keyboard, like, to input stuff? Or, maybe it's touchscreen, and I don't know. But I was just like, oh, look at that. That's good for the prop makers.
Maybe it's like a, what do they call them? Like, stenography machines that they use in court or something like that. I don't know how those work, but...
Right.
Maybe she's got some sort of, like, system worked out.
Yeah, scientific shorthand or something. Yeah. Okay, I'll go with it.
Yeah, no, that gadget has always irked me. It really has.
Yeah, it is very tricorder-like, too.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at that close-up, you could see, like, it even opens and closes the way, yeah.
She seems to be able to do all kinds of stuff on it.
She can do anything with that. She can make a pizza with that thing.
We're between dimensions, or there's something wrong with this crystal, I'll just pull out my tricorder and we'll figure it out. Yeah, it's a very weird device. I've never understood it. But they open up the vortex to what they believe, I guess, is Remy's world.
Yes.
They are going on the assumption that Geiger was telling the truth, but they instead emerge from a building to fan applause.
Like you said, we assume that Geiger was telling the truth. See, that would have led into this episode if he wasn't telling the truth. Like, he brought them here specifically. And then maybe he would, so I just thought of that.
Where do you land on it? Do you think he was telling the truth? Did he think this was their world, or was he just bullshitting them?
I think, all right, if we are true to character, okay, if we are true to the character of Dr. Geiger, I would say he's lying. But because they were wrapping things up, it was just a quick and easy fix to say, oh, I've changed my ways. Here you go. Here's how to get home. Now I'm redeemed. I can go to heaven, or whatever. So, yeah, if we go by the actual character, he would have been lying. It wouldn't have been his home coordinates. Actually, if it was true to character, he wouldn't even given him the coordinates. You know, because
exactly.
he's not going to get anything out of it. So it's like, come on, what the heck?
Exactly. And if he was lying and just gave them a random set of coordinates, like, what does that matter?
Yeah, exactly.
They're randomly sliding now anyway. They've got no coordinates in their timer.
I know.
The change of the gem just wiped all that, so it's not like he's like putting them out by sending them to just some random place.
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't know. They don't explain it. They're not even like, oh, Geiger, that son of a bitch, lied to us again, you know?
Exactly.
Nothing. They don't bring it up at all.
I know.
But yeah, so this is all very meta, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is like of the time. I mean, this is 2000.
Yeah.
Just a few years before this, there was a big, successful movie that reinvigorated the horror franchise, Scream, which was all very meta, you know?
Right.
Talking about horror movies in a horror movie, you know. Let's bring up the rules of the horror movie and see if the people in this movie can follow those rules and blah blah blah. You know, this is what movies did. You know, Scream really kicked that off, not only in horror films, but you know, it was that thing of talking about things in, you know, it's almost breaking a fourth wall in a way.
Yeah.
Right. So I can see why they think this would be a good idea. Let's wrap this up and have it be this world where this guy kind of knows all their stories and has been selling them as, you know, a TV show or whatever. And everybody on this world is like big fan of the Sliders. And let's do this meta thing where they can meet the fans of the show.
Exactly.
I don't know. How do you feel about this idea?
Well, see, now this is the one episode of season 5 that I remember like tuning in because I knew it was going to be the last one and I'd heard about it and I was like, well, let me tune in and watch it. And I don't remember watching the whole thing and I didn't even understand half the stuff that was going on because I hadn't watched the whole season. I didn't really know these characters at all. I actually liked seeing their reactions to seeing the TV show, seeing all their fandom. It goes back, there's this great story. It was a fan-written story. There was this book called Star Trek New Voyages, all right? And it was, I think it was back in the 80s maybe, and it was basically fans that wrote stories and they were like a part of a competition or something, I guess, and it would be published in this book. Okay, and I could be getting this mixed up with another because this was back in the 80s, and then in the 90s there was another version of this that actually went on to do like 6 or 7 books. But this was like, I think it was late 70s, early 80s. It was like just two volumes, and I think it was called Star Trek New Voyages, and people put their own stories into it. It was published like officially, you know, by Star Trek, not to be canon, but like it was official from the company. And there was a story in there where Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beam down to a planet, and something happens with the transporter, and they end up transporting onto the set of Star Trek being filmed.
Interesting.
And like their doubles, you know, get sent to their world or whatever. Something messed up in this whole, you know, in the whole transportation progress. It's sort of like Mirror Mirror, but they sent them to like our world, and like they're on the actual Enterprise, and people are like talking to them like they're Shatner and Nimoy, and like they don't understand what's going on. It was a neat little story, and they actually did another take of it later, where they look at it from the point of the actors who went onto the actual Enterprise. So it was kind of neat. It was like those two stories reminded me of this episode here, where they sort of see themselves as like the actors, you know, on the TV. I was like, I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of other things that I've seen that have this kind of similar idea. You know, there's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie called The Last Action Hero.
Right.
Which was about a kid who he has like a magic cinema ticket and pulls him into this Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he has to like deal with all the tropes of an action movie and stuff like that. It's really funny. There was an episode of Stargate that did a thing where in the first season, O'Neill came in contact with this bit of alien technology, and they never knew what it was in the first season, and then like seasons and seasons later, they bring it up again, and it turns out there was a second one, and it was some sort of like cross-the-universe communicator. Right. So, you know, the guy who had the other one, he found it in a garage sale of all things, was like mentally linked to O'Neill for years, and he would write stories and things like that based on like all these ideas that were coming to him based on the the Stargate team's adventures.
Right.
So, it's been done before. So, I'm not too unhappy with the idea of where they're going. The fact that this is the last episode and, we really want it to be grand and epic, that's where it kind of upsets me. Like, this is what they're going to do for the last episode, seriously.
Right.
We're going to be in a world where people know who the Sliders are and it's a big TV show and stuff. Like, this seems like it should be like a mid-season kind of
Gotcha.
fair,
Yeah, played for comedy more than anything else. Yeah, I get you. So, I had to look it up. I had to look because I had to be sure. It's called Star Trek: The New Voyages. All right? And it is, like I said, it is a... published under copyright of Star Trek, but all the stories in it were called Fans. And the story that I'm referring to was written by Ruth Berman. I don't know if that's someone, because I know that there was a Berman in the Star Trek world, but I'm sure probably not related. It was called Visit to a Weird Planet Revisited. So I don't know, maybe that's the sequel, but I don't know. It's called Visit to a Weird Planet and Visit to a Weird Planet Revisited. So both of those are, if you want to look it up, you can sort of get the story. Oh, actually, looks like it's for free. If you look up, I just looked up Visit to a Weird Planet, and the first result it's like this webpage is from like definitely 1990. It looks like the story is published right there on the page for you to read.
Yeah, maybe we should throw that up on our Facebook or something.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't think that would be here, but yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Nice.
Awesome.
There you go.
All right. So, we set up this whole thing and we meet Claire LeBeau and her father, Mark LeBeau, who is the Seer.
Is the Seer. Now, do you know who Claire is?
No.
If you remember back to Last Days when the world was ending, Remy got with a woman who was married.
Oh, right.
That's Claire. Yeah.
There you go. Because I caught who the Seer was.
Yes, the Seer. Archibald Chandler.
Yeah, Roy Dotrice, who played Archibald Chandler.
Exactly.
But yeah, you're right, Claire.
I was looking at her and I was like, boy, she looks familiar, And I was like, oh, she's that woman from the party,
Wow.
Yeah, and just incidentally, since we mentioned Star Trek, she's also in Star Trek Next Generation as a recurring character.
Yeah, I think I remember that. The Seer, he apologizes about the public reaction. He explains that it was never expected that the Sliders would end up in this world.
Right.
And they're in his house, right? But his house seems to look like the lobby of the Chandler.
Doesn't everything look like the Chandler these days? Isn't everything just redressing the Chandler?
It is. His mansion house is just the redressed Chandler.
Yes.
So I found that really weird. But yeah, Mark says that he had a heart attack that caused him to develop this ability to see into other dimensions, and somehow he's latched on to the exploits of the Sliders.
Yes.
And he started painting, he started writing the stories, and it became a very successful TV show.
Yes.
And people just love it. And at one point, this world was invaded by Cro-Mags, and due to him sort of having all this knowledge in his head, they managed to synthesize a virus and, quote-unquote, sent them packing.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Makes sense. I mean, because if he's seeing all the... if he's seen all of the exploits, that he knows the things that they've tried, things that worked, things that didn't work. So
it's just a strange setup. I mean, like a world where the Sliders TV show exists, right? Like, I understand, like, it could get like a really good following,
right,
as a TV show. But this sort of takes it a step further because the author, or the creator, as it were, never actually denies that it's real.
Right.
Like, he actually presents this as factual stuff
yes,
to the world. And, it just seems like, would people think he's crazy? It seems like they would just think he's crazy rather than turning into crazy fanatics.
That's true. Yeah, because, I mean, like, he's presenting all these stories and they might really like him, but did he... See, we don't know how he presented them at first. Did he present them as real? Or did he just say, I've got these stories that that I've been seeing in my head, which is, what writers would do. So here's these stories. But did he actually say this is actually happening? Because, if he says they're actually happening in another dimension, they'd probably be like, yeah, okay, sure thing, man. Sure thing, Mark. Okay.
Well, he had to at some point, because he set up that whole thing about, like, the sliders are coming and they're going to show up here, so
Right.
let's all get together and have this big hoo-ha.
Right.
Which I think Claire says was her idea. You know?
Yeah.
We know where the sliders are going to come in from, so let's get all the fans together to meet them.
Right.
And, like, all the fans don't seem surprised that the actual sliders have shown up. So he had to have announced that.
Yeah, I guess it's a little flimsy. We don't, they don't go into detail about it. And like the one thing I was wondering is he's all right. So he's the leader. Like they said he was their leader. Do they mean the leader of the world or just leader of their group of worldwide Sliders fans?
I guess just the Sliders fans things, because it's going to come around too that he's actually sort of going to try and turn this into what appears to be like a cult.
Yes. Yeah.
What they called Slidology.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't know. It's a bit thin. It's a bit underdeveloped, really, about like how people feel about this. Like, are they just fans of a TV show, or are they going so fanatical that they're going to buy into this Slidology cult idea?
Yeah, like how would I don't even understand how a religion based on sliding would even work.
Yeah.
Like how would there be a god, or is there a sliding god that they would pray to, or would it be just praying to the vortex? Or I can't imagine.
It's not like he's ever been able to prove that it's real.
Right.
Aside, I guess, from the Cro-Mags showing up.
Yeah. See, maybe he presented it as stories, right? And then, like, they did a whole thing on the TV show and the stories where there were Cro-Mags, but then the actual Cro-Mags showed up. And then they said, hey, wait a second, this guy wrote it. What the heck? And then maybe from that point on, it became like this huge thing like, oh my gosh, these things are real. They've been happening.
Yeah.
And that's when he comes out with it and says,
Maybe.
And that's why they were able to develop the virus, because he said, look, they developed the virus for it. Can we do something like that?
Yeah.
So they don't say that. That's just us, talking.
But he tells them that he foresees the next slide in which they will die. All 4 of them will slide, and they will immediately die upon exiting the vortex on the next one. The group are kind of a bit like, whatever. We don't buy this. We're gonna go ahead and slide when it comes around. Like, we're not gonna stay here.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, they catch an episode of the TV show which is called The Sliders.
The Sliders, yes.
I did find it really funny that Diana's double plays herself in the show.
And badly too.
And they bring up this letter writing campaign that happened.
Yes.
So they bring back Arturo.
This whole scene here, I felt was it was just a bad dig at the fans. Because they know, like the writers know that Arturo was a great character and we wanted him back, and then like Maggie too, like saying like, oh, some people need to get a life. It's like, really? Like, you have to, why are you doing this to your fans? We like the show. We like your characters. We're watching. And it's like, you put this line in there. It's like, that was not good.
Yeah, if it is an homage to Shatner.
Right.
Like, that didn't work out very well for Shatner. No. Everyone was like, hey, fuck you, Shatner. We like this show, and we like to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because we're the fans that, we're not crazy people here. We just really enjoy this show.
Yes.
So don't shit on us. So a line like that's not cool. Like,
no.
You would have thought Kerry Werb would have been like, I'm not saying that.
Exactly. I'm not doing it.
They're happy with the hospitality, that they're given and stuff like that. But Remy says he will get his hands on the virus and slide alone. Like, if they don't want to stay there, then he'll just slide off. He'll take the virus with him.
Yes.
But they do come to the decision that they will stick together.
Yeah, which is good because, back when they were trying to rescue Wade, they're like, oh, time to go. We're out of here, So it's good they got that camaraderie again. They're getting close,
And I don't think it would make sense for any of them to be like, screw that, we're staying.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the fact that they come to the decision where they're just like, nah, I think we'll risk it. Like, who cares what the seer says? Then we get this great scene, because they go to this, like, dinner party thing, and Maggie and Remy meet their duplicates on the world.
Yes.
Like, oh my god, we're so happy to see you. Like, it's crazy that we're meeting you.
Yeah, it was funny.
And Maggie makes the mean gag.
I know.
About, like, you probably make money. I think they talk about money, about making personal appearances and stuff like that. Like, people love that. And she goes, well, the real deal's here now, so I guess you're out of the job.
Starts crying. Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes her cry, and off she goes. I thought that was actually kind of funny.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was good. And did you catch the next people that they introduced them to? Dr. and Mrs. Dial, instead of Bill Dial. And then when we meet Vernon coming up next, on his card, his last name is Peckinpah.
Yeah.
It's like, and he's the president. He's the president of the Sliders fan club. I don't think so. Not in our world.
Yeah, what they call the 4S Club, the Seer's Students for Sliding Society.
Right.
I actually kind of like that character. I'm glad he showed up again later.
Yeah.
That he wasn't just
Vernon was
some
fine.
throwaway guy.
He was fine.
But yeah, the fact that his last name is Peckinpah, you're just like, God, get over yourself, David Peckinpah.
Exactly.
But then they introduce Quinn's mother.
Yes.
I mean, they got back the actress.
Yes.
Yay for continuity. The original actress is back.
Exactly.
But Mallory is like totally rude to her.
Yeah.
And they come up with this whole thing about how they brought her there when the Cro-Mags invaded, and then they were able to, of course, they were able to fight off the Cro-Mags with their virus, and they just left her there. Awfully coincidental.
Well, yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know.
I mean, she does play her part in the resolution of it all, but...
Yeah.
I don't know.
It would have been nice if we had been able to split the Quinns, have Jerry back, and have him reunite with her, I understand where you're coming from.
And of course, Remy brings up, the fact that he wants the virus so he can take it home. But Claire's like, we didn't really make any extra virus. And if we were going to make some, it would take 2 days, but you're going to slide before then. So, yeah, it's kind of like a catch-22. Do you stick around, or do you just slide? I figured they could just ask how to make it, at the very least, and then take that information with them to Remy as well.
Right.
Unless there's some part of it that can only uniquely be done on this world.
Well, yeah, exactly. Just get the recipe, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. But the Seer makes an announcement about Slidology and all that. And the Sliders just get up and walk out. They're just like, to hell with this. I really like that, actually.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because they do this whole thing where you think that it's Mark, the Seer, who's sort of forcing them to stay. And of course it's going to come around later, that's actually Claire, but it's an interesting setup, I think. You think he's the bad guy, but he's actually the good guy. He does actually hold quite a bit of respect for these people, and he's not going... He doesn't want to make them stay. If they want to stay, they can stay. If they want to leave, they can leave. But Claire turns out to be the one who's all, like, money hungry. Like, my father's built an empire on sliding and slidology now, so we're going to have no money if you leave. Which makes no sense, but we'll get into it.
Yes.
So, Mallory, he does get a bit angry. He tells Quinn's mother that, Quinn's gone. And then, Maggie does this whole thing. She sort of describes Quinn as like an organ donor, I guess.
Right, yes. He lives on in other people. It was a bit awkward.
I don't know. This whole thing with Quinn's mother, I guess it's something to sort of wrap up. But, yeah, I don't know. I really don't think I care that much.
Right.
Especially because it's not, like, if it was like Jerry O'Connell.
Well, exactly,
Quinn,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And his mother. That would have been better. But, they're just like, okay, well, we're going to get out of here. We're going to slide. So they slip away. And they go to slide, but there's like some sort of force field surrounding the vortex. At this point, I mean, did you think it was the Seer, Mark?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Who was doing this? Like, were you going with that theory?
Definitely.
I kind of liked the idea. I didn't quite put it together that it would be Cro-Mag technology, though.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that was even going to be a thing.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting idea, like an interesting explanation for how they were able to do all this stuff.
Right.
They can't jump into the vortex, and it closes, but they're not stuck for 29 years. The timer resets to 3 days.
That's weird.
Yeah, did they explain this at all?
No. They just said, it's reset, 3 days. Just enough time to get the virus.
Yeah, we can get the virus now. I don't get it. They don't explain it. I guess that they just throw it away to more Cro-Mag technology garbage.
I mean, I guess like if they had slid through, the next world could have been 3 days. So maybe that's Maybe that's why. I don't know.
No, it makes no sense. It should be 29 years. We've always been told. And we've seen them not slide before.
Right, yeah.
And it sets the 29 years. So, yeah, it's weird. But they go and see Mark, who insists that he isn't keeping them there, and that Claire was the one who said that they had to stay, or that they were going to stay. So, pretty much Claire just relayed bad information to Mark.
Yeah.
So that's why it appeared like he was the one making them stay. But
Yep.
yeah, he wasn't about that. He says he doesn't need to make any more profits or anything like that. He's going to die soon anyway. So
Exactly.
that's kind of the big reveal of it, was that Claire just wants more money. Like, this is her meal ticket. But at this point, they figure they got 3 days, so they may as well try to figure out this virus stuff, right? So Maggie and Remy go to the 4S Club to see Vernon.
Which has one girl, Lisa, and then you have the two other guys who are what would you call them, the reverse digs? They're sort of just there nodding their heads and smiling.
I thought in this scene that maybe they had some sort of competition or something for let's find the two ultimate Sliders fans,
right,
and let them have a cameo in the episode. So that's why they just sat in the background on the couch doing nothing.
Betcha. Yeah, I bet that could have been it.
That's what I was hoping there would be something like that. And this is how they weaved it in. But
exactly.
no, just two extra people sitting on the couch there. And they talk about all kinds of stuff, like sliders collecting cards and all that sort of fan stuff. And
yes.
I don't know. It seems like a little overdrawn.
It is. Yeah, definitely.
At this point in Sliders 2, where it's just gone so downhill. The quality's disappeared. We've lost so many actors that we like.
Yep.
I don't think there was any fans like this at this point.
Right. No, I don't think so.
This is like season 1, season 2, season 3. Like, maybe.
Yeah.
You'd still have people like this. But by this point, people aren't acting like this for Sliders.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to make it seem... It's like Star Trek,
Yeah.
Star Trek or Star Wars, that type of thing.
But he hands over some blood. Side note, that's totally not how you extract blood. Like, he just jams that thing in his arm.
Right.
Pumps the plunger, out comes some blood. Like, no, you got to draw that. You got to tap the vein and let the blood come out. You don't just suck it out with a plunger. Like, are you trying to kill yourself? Ridiculous. But anyway.
Dramatic license.
I know. I've had blood taken before. They do. They tap the vein. There's a little vial there. The blood comes out. You don't just suck it out with the plunger. Like, there's a lot of danger in doing it that way.
Right, yes.
So Mallory and Diana head back to Chandler, and they find these two men attacking Mrs. Mallory randomly. And Mallory manages to fight with them, and eventually one of the men up and destroys the timer.
Yep.
Did you feel like this is how it was going to end? Like, they couldn't leave or anything like that? Like,
I was like, I couldn't, because I didn't know what the ending was, because I remember I didn't watch it the whole thing. I didn't understand what was going on. I don't know that, I figured that now that it's broken, maybe, like, since there were such Sliders fans on this world, that they would be able to find someone who had made a real timer, and Diana would somehow be able to get it working. That's what I was thinking. Like, I wasn't worried that the timer was destroyed. I wasn't like, oh no, now they're stuck here.
Yeah, I think that's where I land. Like, I'm like, there's got to be some way for them to figure this out.
Exactly.
And of course there is, because they get into the whole chromag technology thing.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was like a big uh-oh moment.
Yeah.
Oh, the timer's ruined or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Just it wasn't that impactful. Then we have the whole thing with Mallory talking about how he feels a connection to her through Quinn and stuff. He mentions the stepmother thing as well, which, again, I don't think was very fleshed out in the show proper.
No.
About her being a stepmother.
Like, the whole bubble universe thing. I don't remember, that even being mentioned in there.
I don't think that idea really holds up very well, the stepmother thing. I mean, we've seen her as his mother in other worlds.
Yes.
In the early seasons. So the fact that they changed up the actress a couple of times and then weaved in this whole thing about her being a stepmother, it never held any water for me.
Right.
It was just weird. So, yeah, I wish they would shut up about that. She is Quinn's mother.
Exactly. She's the one who raised
Elizabeth Mallory is definitely not
Quinn's
mother. So, yeah, the big reveal and everything. Claire is totally in for the profits. And she figures she can keep the Sliders there and have their duplicates take their place. So, what? Like, I don't get this. Like, she could just let them slide and still do the same thing.
Right.
Just have the duplicates be like, no, we are the real Sliders, and then carry on. She didn't have to keep them there. She didn't have to try and kill them. What a silly cow.
She's new to this villain thing, just like Dr. Geiger. She's learning.
Yeah, I know. Just like when she was explaining it, I'm like, so no part of your plan requires you to kill them or keep them there.
Right.
She could have just let them slide and they would never come back or be seen of again.
Right. Exactly.
So it's ridiculous. It makes no sense. But of course they get the better of her and they prepare to use Cro-Mag sliding devices to head home because of this big Cro-Mag weapons cache that she's got. So
yes. The whole idea that they're going to slide with the Cro-Mag device, I'm like, well then when they get to the new world, how are they going to get out of the new world? You know, because they can't take the device with them. It's too big. And it's like, yeah, so then they're going to be stuck on a world where they don't know where, like, they could end up like in medieval world again without any technology, you know? So it's like, why not stay here and work on the timer if you really want to, you know, escape?
And did you get a load of that Cro-Mag sliding device? It looked an awful lot like that ray gun from the first episode.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking. When Mallory started to move it, I was like, that looks familiar. That's right.
Yeah. The Seer suffers another heart attack, and they manage to get a wormhole open. But, of course, Diana's like, you know, all the stuff's really old and a bit damaged, and we're not sure it'll work. This wormhole's unstable, and probably only one of us can slide. So, of course, Remy, in a really gross fashion...
Yes.
Puts Vernon's blood
into
his arm. Smashes the vial and everything. So it's just like, it's only me now. It's got to be me. I'm going to go for it. So he slides. He says goodbye to everybody. All very emotional. I think the only one that really stuck out to me was his goodbye with Maggie. Yeah. Diana and Mallory, I just didn't care about.
Right. Yeah. It was, you know, again, back when in the Requiem episode, Maggie and Remy had a good, you know, heartfelt goodbye, you know, and here we have it again, you know, because they are, like I said, they are the closest of the four.
But Remy goes ahead and slides into this little miniature one-person sized vortex, and yeah, we don't know what happens.
Exactly, because the Seer is dead. He can't tell them if,
the Seer is
if he
dead.
survived. Yeah.
But Diana says that the Seer did say that if they all slid, they would die. But as it turns out, only one of them ended up sliding.
Right.
So who knows?
Yep. It might be different now.
Yep. And Maggie's there and she's begging Mark to tell her what happened. But yeah, he's dead. That's the end.
What a terrible way to end it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously. You have the chance to close it up, to end it with a nice closure, even if they don't get home. You know, like, look, I'll tell you this. All right. Now, I know you haven't seen much of Quantum Leap, but the way Quantum Leap ended, it was respectful to the show and to the fans. It may not have been the perfect ending, but it was an ending that was like, that makes sense. This is good. Everything continues on. Everything's good. You know, it's not like this where it's like, well, what the heck happened? You know, like, why? Ugh. You know, it's like, I hate when they do stuff like that.
Just never wrapped up. It's unsatisfying. It was just completely unsatisfying ending for the show.
And they knew they could have ended it so much nicer. But like we said, Bill Dial was just, you know, a big whiny baby. He's thrown a tantrum and said, make it a cliffhanger. I don't care. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you know, it comes down to him. It's like, come on, man, that was your own personal feelings that you should have gotten over for the sake of the show, for the sake of the fans who've supported, you know. It's like, come on.
It's pretty much exactly what I said about the season 4 finale. You know, they weren't sure if they were going to get Jerry O'Connell back,
right?
So why not do an ending where it's, if he's not coming back, then he's gone. If he does come back, then here's an explanation for why he's back. You know, they could have done, they had to have known that this was at the very least a possibility of this being the last season. So they could have done something where it's a satisfying ending. But if they do come back for another season, then it would be easy enough for us to explain what happened or something like that. You know, it didn't have to be such a cliffhanger like this.
I mean, I know that Requiem is hated by everyone. You know, and it's not a great episode, but I'm more okay with that ending than I am with the ending of this. You know, I mean, that one, I know the ending we talked about, it was not a good ending because they, you know, oh, Wade's gone, but somehow maybe not. You know, it's like, well, whatever. You know, fine. It's, you know, this, I don't know. This just leaves it really just bad taste in the mouth.
So thanks for that, Bill Dahl.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, man.
What's wrong?
This device is too badly damaged. Containment is deteriorating rapidly. Look, guys, there may be enough power only for one of us to go through. We better decide who's going to be fast.
Rembrandt, give me the vial.
No, I'll do it. What are you doing?
Just call me Typhoid Remy. Now look, if I survive this, the Seer, he'll know if the coast is clear. You just fix that thing and you slide with me, all right? If not, then you have a good life. Take care, Mallory. I'm on you, all right? Your family, huh?
Remy!
Alright, so before we get into slide effects, let's check out the messages in time for these 2 episodes.
One guy came on and on the old boards there and said he claimed, oh well, the writers didn't know it wasn't going to be renewed. They wanted to put a cliffhanger because they thought they were going to get another season, and like pretty much everyone came on to that post and was like, BS. You know what?
Yep.
Look at this site. Look at this site. Look at this site. They know. They knew. It was no longer
Yeah, they knew full well what was going on.
There was, they said, worst all-time horrible season ender. A huge insult to the fans who kept it going. Someone was like, well, they don't owe us anything. It's like, well, yeah, they don't owe you anything, but still, you should be at least respectful,
Yeah.
Someone was hoping for a cliche ending from the Seer, like not really being dead, but saying, he's alive, that type of thing. Just, it's so cliche, but still, they wanted something like that. And
he lives on.
Exactly. He's on Earth 157. So now there's this guy. I never mentioned this before, but there's this guy who posts on the forums back then who was called Motar the Imperious, and I don't know. He's just annoying. He shows up in these threads where people are talking, and it's not exactly like a troll, but like he starts talking about the episode and himself in third person, and it's always like over the top. Like when they're saying something about an episode, he goes, well, Motar the Imperious likes this episode because Motar thinks da 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 da, and it's always something that starts to go off the tangent, off onto a tangent from what they were talking about. And he shows up again and again in these old forums. I'm like, oh, here comes Motar. I'm skipping this thread. Forget about it. It's so annoying. But like they liked it back then. I guess he was a member of the community, whatever. It just annoys me now. Someone said, goodbye, Sliders. May you go to a land where people love you and the writers are good. Yeah, there you go. And then my favorite quote, which I mean, it sums up a lot of what we've said, about things, good quality versus bad quality episodes. This guy said, I'm glad it's over, glad Sliders is done with, because now I won't be tempted to watch anymore, hoping for an episode of good quality.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're going to get, and you hope it's going to be good, and it's like,
Yeah. And we said that about season 5. There were some good episodes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely more bad episodes than there were good,
Yep.
but there were still some good episodes with solid performances. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was all over the place.
So for Eye of the Storm, they said it was a decent closure to the Quinn storyline. It's better than leaving it open. I guess, it's fine. The best part of the season was the closeness of Maggie and Remy. They loved Maggie now, when at first they really hated her, which I feel, the same way. Like, she was just annoying when she first came on, but much better now. They like the idea that Maggie beat the bellhop and took the timer back, because it's usually the bad guy who comes in and hits them and says, I'm taking that, Instead, it's like reversed.
Yeah, I did kind of like that.
Yeah. And then this one guy was like, I really like the character of Sharon because she had depth. And I'm like, what? Who's Sharon? I'm like, oh, that's Sharon. Really? She had depth?
Yeah. Just like Hal. Hal had
just
depth.
like Hal.
He had 2 kids.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I was like, whatever. DX Dale notes that Mr. Morris, the one who was being shot in the episode, that could have been referring to Eric Morris, who I guess originally submitted this story idea for this episode, I guess. I don't know. That's what they said. I don't know where he got his notes from, but that's what he said. They said, you know what? Diana and Mallory should have been, freaking out a lot more about losing their home coordinates, because that's never happened to them. Yeah. Remy's used to it. He's been lost for years now. And Maggie, of course, she just goes along. But they should have been like, well, we don't have our home coordinates. How are we going to get home? Oh my God. They should have been freaking out. Makes sense. And then they said, furthermore, Diana, she doesn't really do anything. The professor and Quinn come up with answers all the time, some kind of scientific gobbledygook, but she just sort of fiddles around. Says, well, theoretically, it's possible. Maybe I can try. Let me see if I can do this. It's like she never has a solid answer, it seems like.
I mean, for our little midsections, the one I did for her was explain everything with Diana Davis, because that's what she does. She just over-explains everything.
Yes.
But she doesn't really give any solid answers to
No,
her.
exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Like we said, why did they bring up splitting the Quins? Mallory said he was gone after the nanites in his body. Maggie accepted it. Audience accepted it. Forget about it. We know he isn't coming back. And they said, a pox on Jerry for not coming back. And a pox on Sci-Fi for not letting him come back. They said, you know what? This would have been a much better episode with Geiger being an evil Arturo instead. That would have been a neat evil villain to have at the end. They said... One guy said, what happened to the Cro-Mags? Did I sleep during that resolution? And I just think that, I don't know, they defeated him on that world with Wade, and that was kind of it. That was supposed to be the resolution to the whole Cro-Mag arc, I guess.
No, well, they kept going on about the Cro-Mag still being on Remy's world.
Right.
To get the virus and everything. So,
exactly. So he missed, yeah. And then finally, someone said they like Mallory. They like the character Mallory better than Diana because she's not given enough, depth, enough to do. And he's just really unique among all the sliders we have, which he is kind of unique. I like the character of Mallory more now in this rewatch than I, did when I first, heard about it. So. Success on that part.
All right, so let's get into our bonus discussion here.
Yes.
We have the script Slide Effects. We have the story by Tracy Tormey and written by our good friend Ibrahim Ing, also known as iReactions.
You say you solved this earlier today.
It was 5 or 6 years ago, I think. It's hard to tell right now.
Yes, your doppelganger from a parallel universe. I'm sorry, I hear the words in my own voice and I cannot justify breathing them. Parallel universe. Merely a mathematical concept for examining the universe through numbers and symbols. Abstract. And according to this, impossible. And yet
you're hearing me out.
Only because Jeopardy was preempted tonight, Mr. Mallory.
Because you remember me.
Of course I remember you. You're my student. You nearly killed me today. And you nearly destroyed a car I refurbished with my own hands.
I mean, you remember our adventures together. We were sliders.
We begin with Quinn Mallory Prime, normal, non-sliding young man, waking up, confused about where he is, before realizing he is home in his old room. A glance in the mirror causes him to have a quick flash of another, different, short-haired man looking back at him. As he makes his way through the house, seeing his mother, who informs him his friend, Wade, called, he discovers that in his basement laboratory, the equation on his blackboard that was once completed by an alternate Quinn long ago is now incomplete again. Quinn hurries out of the house to get to Wade, in the process almost causing a car accident with Professor Arturo, who quickly dismisses him and drives off. Upon arriving at Wade's house, he tries to explain to her what he's been experiencing, but she tosses it off as a possible dream and suggests a psychiatrist to help him through this. In the waiting room, Quinn's memory of what has actually happened to him and what hasn't is pushed further when he meets Jillian and Remy, both people he remembers but that don't remember him. When he starts to tell them things that he knows to prove they were friends once, they get scared and treat him as a deranged stalker.
Quinn then goes to Professor Arturo's house, and after the initial lashing out by Arturo, he starts to remember and becomes intrigued by his student's discovery that in this universe, because of a certain equation in the formula, sliding cannot possibly exist. Together, they reason that because this one part of the equation is wrong, that all of the scientific reasoning behind everything should be wrong as well, leading them to believe that someone has tampered with just this one aspect of reality around them. Agreeing to meet up later, Arturo helps Quinn escape from the police, who followed Quinn after Remy called the cops on him earlier. Quinn finds Remy at the restaurant he told him he planned to go to after singing the anthem at the baseball game years ago before they first slid, and eventually, with some persuasion, Remy starts to remember sliding as well. They go to the professor and Wade, and together they listen as Quinn relates the adventures of their sliding together, the world around them starting to darken as each story is told, until finally, Remy stops Quinn when he starts to relate a story that he, nor the professor or Wade, doesn't remember. Suddenly, the illusion of the world around them is broken, and they see themselves lying on 4 med tables with a 5th one nearby. A figure arises from that table, revealing itself to be a Cro-Mag. The Cro-Mag explains how it captured the Sliders long ago, hoping to get them to reveal their home coordinates, but ultimately not succeeding with Quinn due to the tracker implant being affected by a rip in time that occurred during one slide. Because of that rip, Quinn began experiencing every quantum possibility that existed, with the Cro-Mag pushing the worst of them all forward for him to experience, such as Wade's experiences in the breeder camp, or Arturo being shot and killed, and even Remy sliding to his death. Quinn reasons that he must have known that somehow they weren't real, explaining that that is why he seemed to stop caring and why his behavior seemed out of character. Eventually, he found he could deny the worlds the Cro-Mag was presenting him with and found himself within his friends' worlds. Together, the 4, using their good memories, are able to turn the tables to break free from the illusion and escape, leaving the Cro-Mag trapped within his own mind. As they exit, the professor trips, and Quinn sends Remy and Wade ahead while he stays behind to help him. Instead of helping, however, Quinn promptly attacks the professor, pushing him against the wall and revealing that he knows that this is not Professor Arturo Prime, but rather the double from Azure Gate World. Quinn says that he knows what becomes of the group without the professor, so there's no choice but for this man to continue his charade, promising to not tell Wade and Remy. The 2 rejoin the others, and together they slide into the unknown once again.
You looking for more trouble, kid? Already called the cops. That poor girl has enough problems without you hassling her.
Just hear me out. Aren't you curious about how I knew you'd be here?
You're a stalker.
Rembrandt, get real. You've been singing at weddings and funerals for almost 2 decades. Who'd want to stalk you? We're friends, Rembrandt. We've known each other for years. You've just forgotten.
Son, most of my friends I've known since I was 25. You'd have been an infant, and I don't forget faces.
Well, I haven't forgotten you, Rembrandt. I haven't forgotten how you told me about your evening plans.
What?
You always told me, after the Giants game, you were coming here to celebrate. Just you. This is where the Tops celebrated their first big hit.
How? I didn't tell anyone I was coming here tonight. No one.
You told me lots of things, Remy. How you were 17 years old, little Rembrandt and the Chandelles, Violet was your 29-year-old backup singer, and how you loved her with all your heart.
The only people who know that are in the grave by now. Who are you?
Your friend. You must feel that on some level. Look at me. Don't search your memory. Just tell me what you feel when you look at me.
I feel the need to slap you with one hand and strangle you with the other. Feel the need to take up a steak knife and give you another scar on your face. I feel... Cue ball? Alright, so there is like a ton of trivia on this that iReactions himself has collected on his own script. So let's get into it.
When I first found the script, it was much longer when I first found it, and it was one of the early drafts, I guess, that he had posted up, and then over the course of the years, he's trimmed it down and rewritten and fixed it all up. So some of this stuff was stuff that he took out. So the original outline that Tracy Torme had for slide effects established that on this Earth Prime, Ryan, remember Ryan? Who just sort of disappeared off into nowhere, and Jillian, Sid, and Logan St. Clair were all supposed to be familiar and important characters here in this Earth Prime. But iReactions couldn't find a way to explain how Logan St. Clair could be present, because she's supposed to be a double of Quinn, a female double. So he couldn't figure out a way to present that in a logical version
So he just said, well, the heck with that. And just tossed it out. I personally am disappointed that there's no Henry the dog in this.
Where's Henry?
I mean, come on. That's what we've all been wondering for the last 4 seasons. Damn it.
Exactly. Where did Ryan and Henry go?
Exactly. The screenwriter's intention was that the police officers who go to the professor's house, that was going to actually be Ryan and Sid, the 2 characters we had before. But due to the pacing, he dropped that bit of description, which is, I think if it was actually turned into a script, it would be or into a show, it would be cool to see them, because you wouldn't need to explain too much maybe about that, just fans. They'd be like, oh, look, it's them.
Yeah, and you know me, like, I'm always harping on about how, you get actors back, but you give them different names and stuff. Like,
exactly.
If you get the actors back, it would be really, really good to just, give them those names for the familiar character that we know them as.
Exactly, yeah, that would be cool. The use of scientist Herbert Van Meer relating to the sliding equation is a deliberately inaccurate reference to The Guardian. It basically suggesting that various details of season 3 episodes were shifted from the actual reality. But in the edits, they just cut that all out. Because, again, just for pacing, for timing-wise, to try to keep it down to, like, something that they could actually do in an hour, for an hour show. And then Colonel Rickman, our favorite, was supposed to be present in the flashbacks, the worst of his futures or whatever. But to tighten up the pace, and again, he was just removed from the scene descriptions. So just tightening it up,
Yeah, cool.
Now, for as far as behind the scenes and where this script came from, he got the original title of the story was called Possible Slide Effects from Tracy Torme. And he had come up with this idea in 1996 when he was still the story consultant. But, he was like kind of not into it. A lot of his ideas, as we talked about, over and over again, kind of getting like, pushed down. And he was also dealing with his father's health issues, so he was just kind of like, it never really went anywhere back then. Eventually, as we know, he was off the show completely. But he had wanted this story to be the season 4 premiere. And I think that wouldn't that have been awesome? That would have been so good, But this was before the whole idea that Peckinpah had about Wade going to the breeder camp. This was conceived before Arturo was shot, before Quinn was turned into, as iReaction said, Kal-El of Cro-Mag Prime, which it's a good description. I don't think we even thought about that when we talked about it, but that's what it is, I send you to Earth, my son.
Yeah, but it's interesting that he would be thinking about this as like a good twist.
Yeah.
For that season premiere.
Exactly.
Because of, what went down with John Rhys Davies and everything, it never came about. But, man,
exactly.
Wouldn't that just blow your freaking mind?
Oh, I know. It would have been awesome. Yeah, like, basically, he just said, I need a way, I had to find out a way to retcon certain episodes, because there were certain episodes that were just like, ugh, this is, not good. So that's where he got this idea from. Now, iReactions actually contacted Torme. Like, he actually talked to Torme in the year 2000, which I guess he says somewhere here it was like 15. So he's 15, and he contacts Torme, and, basically just gushing over how much he loves Sliders and, the format of it and how great an idea this was, just the idea of the show, and you could do anything with it, just really just, all the things, we like about Sliders. And Torme actually invited him to chat on, like, AOL. Can you,
Nice.
like that's like, I'm like, there's a couple female celebrities that maybe I should message, let's see. Jennifer Love Hewitt, what's your handle? Okay.
I wonder if we can get Terry Hatcher on the line. Now we're moving on to Lois and Clark.
There you go. But yeah, so he got to ask him, a whole bunch of questions, and they had a good conversation, and, Torme told him, that the wrong professor slid. Like he said, that was what it was. There was a wrong professor. That's how I wanted it to be. And he said that, John Rhys Davies, he was a pain in the ass, but he was worth working with because of how talented he was and like what he brought to the show. It's like you deal with that. When you get a good actor like that, you're gonna have to deal with what comes with it.
Yeah, he's just a passionate guy who wanted to do his job well. So
and you can understand why he would like be critical of some of the scripts because a lot of them were bad.
Yeah.
So, let's see. He's also said that when Jerry moved to the producer position or whatever it was, I forget what when he moved up to directing and all that, that's fairly common in the business to happen. It's usually an agent that pushes for it. It's not necessarily just the actor. It's like coming from the agent. You know?
And I think we talked about that too.
Yeah.
When we saw that Jerry was producing and directing and the whole thing with John Rhys Davies, he wanted some input on the scripts and stuff.
Exactly.
And they kind of, threw him down and then threw him to the wolves after that.
Right, yeah. And Tracy Torme, I wonder if now he knows, but back then in 2000, he didn't want to know how the series ended. He didn't want to even hear about the cliffhanger ending. I wonder if he's watched it since then, and I wonder what his reactions would be now.
Maybe just vomited violently.
Yes, because he said he even received scripts, over the course of the rest of the series, but he just left them unopened. He didn't want to look at them because he knew that it'd just make him angry, he'd be disappointed. It's I don't even care, whatever.
Just burn them.
Exactly, and that's when he started describing his reset story, to iReactions. And, like he says here, iReactions was 15, but he had that idea that Torme said, he kept it in his head, but he got interested in something else. A much bigger adventure was looming for iReactions, and that would be girls.
Yes.
When a young man's heart turns to love.
The bane of every 15-year-old's existence.
Sometimes the bane of every 41-year-old's existence, too. Well,
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, let's see. So when Matt Hutaff of Earth Prime posted an interview with Torme in 2009, it reminded iReactions of the story, the possible slide effects. And so he decided, I'm gonna write this. So on a weekend, he started writing down, his ideas and getting a script going. And he was trying to get the voices of the characters on paper. I guess I've never read the Doctor Who novels, but he mentioned that the Doctor Who novels did a good job of emulating the speech patterns and the mannerisms of the TV characters, so that when you were reading the book, it felt like you were watching the TV show.
Yeah,
and that's what he was trying. Yeah, that's what he was trying to do. Oh, you've read some of the novels?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there you go.
There's also a company called Big Finish that do audio plays.
Oh, yeah.
And their big client is that they signed a bunch of old actors who played Doctor Who. So they could carry on old Doctor adventures because, of course, these actors, aged. So they you can't see them anymore because the Doctor doesn't get old like that.
That's pretty cool.
But, they could carry on the Doctor's adventures and stuff like that. So, it is important to sort of get those mannerisms down because each actor's brought a different interpretation to the role.
That would be, that would be cool to I'd love to hear Star Trek audio plays like that, because with the actors and everything, that would be neat. I never thought about that before, because they got the audiobooks where sometimes Jonathan Frakes will narrate, or Gates McFadden, I know that John Delancey has read a lot of it. It'd be neat to see an audio play with their voices, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we could do Sliders, but our versions of them are a bit more caricature than anything else. Wouldn't be right.
Wouldn't be quite the same. So, all right. So anyway, he was trying to do that. He was trying to get the voices right. He was really worried about not making Remy seem like a racist character. Just because he, as we discussed this, I told you about that character Step and Fetchit, way back when, and people were saying, "Oh, Remy's just a Step and Fetchit character," and his demeaning to the black culture and stuff like that, and he was really worried about writing that in such a way that it didn't turn out like that. So he just tried to write him as a normal guy, but with a little bit of Cleavant's humor, thrown in there, and it was good. It was good. The real problem he had was trying to get Wade's voice right, and he doesn't know why, but he could not get her voice right on paper from the Sliders episodes. Watching the Sliders episodes, he could not capture what made her her. So he had to find some movies that she had also acted in. So he rented this one, and he was he bought it and went home to watch it to try to get her voice right. And he didn't realize it was a silent movie.
There was no dialogue. So it's like, well, that's not going to work. So
wow.
I know. It's funny. So he had to go out and get some other movies. And eventually he got it, he got the right mannerisms down and whatnot, speech patterns. But yeah, it's kind of funny. So pops the movie in. All right, let me get this. I'm gonna get into her head here, and it's a silent movie. What the heck? Yeah, best intentions. So now for Torme, the reset button would have ended up starting after the Guardian. So everything past the Guardian would have been discarded. But iReactions chose the episode As Time Goes By, an earlier episode. That way, the professor wouldn't have a fatal disease going forward.
Right.
So we don't have that looming over our heads, And then, plus, that makes Logan St. Clair end up being categorized as one of the worst 37 futures for Quinn. I like it. The idea of the worst futures, in fact, actually came from Andromeda, which I've never watched. I'm not even sure if I even heard of it.
Yeah, I never saw it. I know what it is. I've never saw it, though.
Yeah, so it's another show where, a talented creator-writer was fired. I think he said halfway through the second season or something like that. And so the show continued on differently than what was originally intended. Just like Sliders kind of went off into this, weird place. So it's Robert Hewitt Wolf was the guy. And so he was fired. But then he posted his screenplay detailing what should have happened and what his vision was. And now that screenplay exists alongside the official aired version as two possible outcomes across many possible parallel universes for the series. So yeah, it's kind of neat. Like they got the official version, which is like, yeah, we're fans of Andromeda, but then we got this one that for the real fans of Andromeda, we've got the original idea from the creator himself. Handed down from God, so to speak.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of neat. iReactions also wanted this script to serve as a prequel for all the fan fiction out there, because there was a lot of fan fiction out there after the series ended, of course. And this way, it doesn't discount, anybody who wrote fan fiction for seasons 3 through 5. Everything is inclusive now. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Fans said they told him it's cool that you use the cave set in the story so much. It's great to see that because they used it so much in season 3, and iReactions was like, I don't really, they did, and he didn't notice it, but when he went back, yeah, they used that cave set over and over as much as they used the Chandler. I think even just like they did in 4 and 5. iReactions said, well, it makes sense that I used the cave set, really, because just like Quinn was sensing that parts of the stories that he was experiencing weren't real, he said, well, maybe he sensed that he was also in a cave, so a lot of the stories are going to take place in the cave because that's what he's sort of sensing, that's where he is. It's not real. So I like that idea. That's why there was so much of the cave, because Quinn was sensing it.
It's a bit of a retcon, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Think of it. Oh yeah, I did use that cave set. Well, here's an explanation for it.
Exactly, but it's a good explanation. It
I like
fits. Yeah, it fits the whole reset idea, and it fits the whole Cro-Mag, mind messing idea. And it's the same thing with the tables that they were on. They're laying on those tables in the script. It's the same thing with the Dream Masters, because in the Dream Masters they were on those tables too, and he said that could be like a callback to that. Like he was sensing that they weren't actually there but on these tables. So I like it. So I guess iReaction's ex-girlfriend read the script, and basically said, you know what, you are nuts, and this script is proof you need help. You need like psychotherapy or something. Like it was just, she was not very nice, and that's why she's the ex, and Matt over at Earth Prime said, it's too stuffed with stuff. It's just too busy, apocryphal to destroy 75% of the series episodes, and ridiculous to reset the clock back to 1996 when so much time has passed. I understand a little bit of what he's saying. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of stuff in here, but I think it works really well. I think the pacing is great. And I think if you were going to turn it into an episode, it might need 2, and then you could really show a lot of the flashbacks. Like really call back to all those moments, you know what I mean? I think that'd be nice. So I don't think it's too stuffed with stuff. And destroying 75% of the series, it doesn't really destroy it, because they still happened. It's just they happened like, in their minds, basically.
So it's not like you're destroying everything. It's not like you're saying these never happened at all. It's just like you're kind of like, just saying they happened, but what really happened was all before that. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Well, at the same time, it's just looking at it and saying, like, we really enjoyed those first 2 seasons with the original cast. Like, they had some good adventures, good stories. The scripts were always solid. So this is just a way of sort of taking it back to that, because later on, when they added Maggie and then they added Mallory and Colin and everybody, it kind of just, it waned out. So let's just focus on, like, the stuff that we really, really like. Not to say we didn't like all that other stuff. There was still some good stuff there.
Yep, exactly.
But these original characters are the ones that we really, really like.
And that's what it all comes down to. Like Matt said that, it works for the fans. This script works great for the fans, but it doesn't really work for the show very much. And Iraction said, you know what? I'm fine with that. Because it's written for us, It's written for the fans who love those first 2 seasons, like you just said.
Yeah, it's called fan fiction for a reason.
Exactly.
All right, well, I guess we have time for one last quick impression.
All right.
Cue the music.
Gasping, Alan Rickman brakes his car and rolls down his window. He leans out to the other car, which has stopped. The window is rolling down, too.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
You thoughtless, inconsiderate Alan Rickman?
Kermit, you're alive.
I very nearly wasn't, you blistering idiot. You clearly have no business driving a car. Get a scooter, ride a bike, stay off the roads!
Oh my God. It's you. Kermit. I can't believe you're...
Mr. Rickman! I am already coping with my own shock. Refrain from adding yours to my burden. I will see you in class, provided I make it to campus alive. Yay!
And...
Scene. And add the yay in there. Yeah.
Every time you just throw that yay in, and I'm like, oh, that's so
exactly.
Funny.
Exactly.
I love it.
This morning, I considered Mr. Mallory to be a menace behind the wheel. This afternoon, I considered him to be an absent layabout in need of a wristwatch. This evening, I find him annoying and intrusive.
How did I not remember you? Did you always talk this much?
But then, Mr. Mallory wrote out his figures and showed me that there is something wrong with this world.
Yeah, it's running out of natural resources. A third of the world goes without
Something
water.
wrong, Miss Wells, with the very nature of reality itself. Our existence. It cannot be. The last 40 years of my life, the papers I've written, the theories I've proposed, they would be fundamentally different were Van Meer's theorem as we see it written here. Something has altered history, changing nothing but this set of calculations to entrap us in a world where the Sliders cannot exist.
Am I supposed to just take your word for it that some blackboard nonsense shows us the world isn't real? Seems real enough.
Yes, it does. But so does what I feel. I don't know you, but I know what I feel, and I love you as a daughter. I look at Quinn, I see a son I never had. I look at Mr. Brown, I see a man I trust with my life. A brother. Mr. Brown, when you look at Quinn, what do you see?
A smug college kid in dire need of a good kicking. That's what I see. Oh, don't get me wrong. I know who he is. I wouldn't want to kick him if I didn't. Thanks.
There we are. We must try to remember as best we can. Mr. Brown's memories have begun to come to the surface thanks to the presence of familiar faces. Quinn tells me Wade experienced a sense of the truth as well.
I look at all of you, and I know we're all connected somehow.
Alright, so let's get into our discussion of slide effects. So, pretty much it's the opening of the pilot episode, right?
Yep.
Panning across Quinn's room.
Yep, just like it.
But, laying in bed is Mallory.
Well, no, he starts off as Quinn.
I thought it was Mallory, and he gets up and looks in the mirror, and then it's sort of like, it was like a flash, and suddenly it's Quinn.
No, it's the opposite. So when he when he's laying there, it's just like the pilot. So it's him Okay, he had he has his glasses on just like he did in the original pilot. He still has glasses on, and then when he wakes up, everything's fine. But he goes to the mirror, and it's a flash cut, and he's for an instant he sees Mallory standing there in the mirror, and then it flash cuts back to Quinn, because he's seeing himself again with his own face, his lengthy hair. That his glasses and everything.
I don't know. It's an interesting idea because I just thought it would be interesting if it was Mallory there, because he's the one that we sort of left off with, and then it's like a flash, like a full reality change in a way.
Right.
But yeah, I can see it the same way. Like it's Quinn in the bed. He looks in the mirror and he sees Mallory's face.
Yeah, it's just like a whoosh.
Yeah.
And like this comes in later, like when he goes to see Wade, and as soon as she opens the door, he looks at her, and suddenly there's another flash cut, and he sees Wade's head in the disembodied, Chromag, video game machine there, floating.
Yeah.
So it's just that happens there. He puts that into the script just to flash, like he remembers these other people. He remembers Mallory, and he remembers Wade from in that machine. So he's trying to reinforce, that he has experienced all this stuff, even though it seems like we're back at the beginning again.
And all this flash cut stuff that he talks about in the script,
Mm-hmm.
it really feels like Sliders, like that
Yes.
90s way of doing it, a flash to a flashback,
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. It's just the tone. It's very visual in the writing.
Oh yeah.
To
definitely.
sort of get you into the feel of what the show was when it first started.
Definitely.
Yeah, and he runs downstairs and finds his mother making breakfast, just like in the pilot.
And in my mind, it's the original mother.
Oh yeah,
it's not that replacement one we got.
And it's definitely not Elizabeth Mallory.
Exactly.
But it's a big emotional reunion for him. But of course, his mother doesn't quite understand what the deal is.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about, speaking with his father and stuff like that. Again, just like the pilot. So, he's really sticking with the tone of the first episode.
Oh my God,
but
yeah.
changing it up.
Like when he goes downstairs, I could picture the camera just on his sneakers and panning upward as he walks down. It's just, yeah, it was really good. Really well done.
And his mother throws out that Wade had called for him. And, he's a bit ecstatic, but the first thing he wants to do is go down to his basement. He was actually quite, ready to, run out the door and go and see Wade, If it was like, oh my God, Wade, I gotta go and see her. But then he stops and he's like, you know what, I better check my basement lab first.
Exactly.
Because if I'm gonna get answers, I'll probably find it there.
And he goes down, but his tapes aren't there. His tapes that are proving that this vortex exists are not there. They're gone. And then of course we talked, in the synopsis about how the equation is unsolved again. So it's like the stuff that we saw in the pilot with him doing the tape and throwing the basketball through and, his double coming through and, fixing the equation. None of that ever happened here.
I think that's something that people forget about Sliders is that Quinn never solved the equation himself.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why they're lost in the first place. He never actually got to that place himself. It's his alternate's fault. I mean, they kind of got into that later in the series when they ran into him again and all that crap on that fog world thing.
Exactly.
About
one of 37
him hating
bad
that.
futures. Yeah. That's one of those bad futures we get to wipe out.
Yeah, a pretty terrible explanation. But yeah, it's a great thing that, let's get rid of the tapes. So there's no proof. It's not solved, so the alternate never showed up. And of course, if sliding cannot exist, then the alternate's never going to show up.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, it is a good setup. But, he does rush out. He gets in his BMW, and he almost gets in a car accident with Arturo.
He did a great job of capturing the voices. Okay, I was going to say it now. Because, when I'm reading this script, there's so many parts. Every part I can think of. It's just that sounds like the Quinn we know, or that sounds like the professor we know. I mean, the professor is pretty easy. He's kind of simple to get, but I don't know, Quinn's especially there was a part near the end of the script that I'm reading, and I'm like, man, that the way he wrote it, and he ended the sentence here and he started a new one here. I could just hear that coming out of Jerry O'Connell's voice. I could hear it. It's he did a good job capturing the voices of these guys.
Just to be a little bit critical, I did feel that this almost getting in a car accident with Arturo was a little unnecessary. I kind of wish that the first time we saw him for the episode was in his classroom, just like we did in the pilot, you know?
Right. Okay, I could see that. I think probably it's just like, again, probably just a pacing issue to try to keep it down to the 47 minutes. And truthfully, like, I forget what page we're on now, but like, we want to get those main characters introduced, like, quickly. You know, as quick as we can, you know, so we've got Quinn and his mother, you know, and we're going to get Wade here in just a second, you know, and then we got Arturo, and like Remy's the one that takes the longest to come in, but like, I'd say, I forget what page it is, but in general, I understand it's like a minute a page usually is how they run it.
Yeah.
And so like by page 7, we've got 3 of our main characters, including the mothers. We got Mother, Quinn, Wade, and Arturo. So 4 characters by page 7. And then by page, let's see, is it page 10? No, page 11, we have Jillian and Remy coming in. So like that's in the first quarter, you know, of the episode, which is pretty good. You've reintroduced all your main characters, and it's like, what the heck's going on? No one remembers, you know? So, like, I can understand why, you know, this would be in the car, because he's already in the car going on his way. It gets those main characters in the story really quickly.
Yeah, and of course it's going to feel a bit more rushed than what the actual pilot is, because the pilot was a 2-parter.
Exactly.
And for the most part, it is considered just one big, long hour-and-a-half feature-length pilot episode. So they had a lot more time in that pilot to sort of, gradually get to the characters. So, yeah, you know, he is sort of rushing into it a bit quicker. And at the same time, fans of the show wouldn't need a long, drawn-out explanation of stuff.
Exactly.
It is just sort of there to reintroduce them and sort of get anybody else catched up if they need to get into it. So, yeah, it's not too bad. I kind of just thought that introduction of Arturo was just, you know, it's for a character to come back into the show. Like, that's his big return, is this almost car crash, and then, okay, we're going to get to him again later.
Right. I guess it would be like, you'd have to, like, figure out a way to justify Quinn going to the classroom. You know, maybe, I guess, like, going to see Wade, and then maybe rushing over to the classroom and interrupting the class like he did in the pilot, you know, and then I think it might end up making it a little bit longer, you know, more than what we needed, actually.
Yeah, you're right, because outside of that, you know, initial thing with the car accident, the next time you see Arturo is when Quinn shows up at his house, and Arturo kind of has a go at him for, you know, actually not being in his class that day.
Exactly. So yeah, because you know, then if we didn't have the car scene here, we wouldn't see Arturo until much later. So, you know, like this, like, I'm not sure how it would run with commercials, but I think before like the first big commercial break, we'd have all the main characters in the story already. You know, whereas if we didn't, we'd have to wait until, you know, after he goes to the psychiatrist in order to get the whole Arturo thing, because the police have to come after him and Arturo has to help him. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be weird if he went to the classroom and got his help there in the classroom in front of everybody, you know? Or even like in maybe the professor's office or something. It's just, it works out the pacing better with this, you know?
Well, and at the same time, I'm not sure it would be necessarily a bad thing to maybe hold back Arturo for a bit, because, you know, he was the one who had died in the show, so we really haven't seen him for a really long time.
True, yeah.
So to hold back on him a little bit, I don't think would necessarily be something that's bad.
I think it's just more of a matter of taste, you know, just like with the whole, like I said, with the whole General Beckett thing, I'm like, I don't like it. You know, I'd rather nicer, you know. So yeah, because I like the way they introduce all the main characters, just boom, boom, boom. They're here, but they're not what you remember. You know, there's something changed, fundamental.
Yeah, but the reason that Quinn was rushing and almost got in the car accident was because he's heading to Wade's place, and their interaction here is really cool, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the fact that, you know, in the pilot, you know, the first time we saw Wade was at Doppler Computers.
Yes.
And here, he's actually shown up at her house, you know, earlier in the day, so she's actually just woken up, and she's, you know, mousy, and she's actually quite surprised to see Quinn at her house, because, you know, in that pilot episode, they were buds and all that stuff.
Yeah, and she was following him around, like, you know, like, because she had a crush.
Exactly, but they didn't necessarily, like, hang out. Like, they were
Right.
like awesome friends or something, and they go over each other's house all the time, you know? So
Mhm.
she's actually kind of surprised that he knows where she lives.
And he has like all this, he has all these memories of things that they've shared together, which she apparently doesn't have yet, you know? So like when he's looking at her, he's thinking, wow, you know, like she looks as good as ever. She's, you know, beautiful. And like, you know, like he's like emotional about it because, you know, there's, you know, as we always wanted, we wanted to have Quaid, and they came so close so many times, you know? And so like he's looking at her again and it's like, oh, here it is, you know? And like she doesn't remember anything.
Yeah, there wasn't even that thing with the alternate Quinn showing up and kissing her.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Getting Quinn fired and stuff, so
Mhm.
she doesn't even know anything about that.
Yep.
She's just a total clean slate here, and she invites him in, and she sits there and does his tarot.
Yes, because
Which
that's
I
her
think is-
character.
Yeah, that's quite funny.
Uh-huh.
I liked it. But, you know, she's just, like, going on about, like, how he must have just been dreaming or something. Like, this is a crazy story. Maybe you might want to see a doctor about this.
Exactly. I wonder if that comes from his ex-girlfriend. You know, I read his ex-girlfriend say, you know, like, yeah, whatever.
He actually does take her advice. Like,
Oh, yeah.
because he's, you know, even though he's got all these memories, he's still, you know, there's going to be a lot to deal with. So he's like, okay, maybe you're right. And he tracks down a Dr. Matthew Liebling. Now, I don't know if this was supposed to be a reference.
Yeah, I don't know either. Like, I didn't. There was nothing in his trivia or anything like that, so I'm not sure. I bet he'll answer it in the forums over at Sliders.tv. Because I was wondering too. He doesn't really. We don't really see Dr. Matthew Liebling at all, you know, in the script. He's just, you know, it's just, that's where he happens to end up. So I'm not sure if that's a reference to something in the show or a friend or someone behind the scenes or what.
Yeah, he just seemed to go out of his way to mention the doctor's name.
Right. Maybe there was an original scene that he cut, you know, and didn't mention. I don't know. Could it be the name of the psychiatrist in the post-traumatic slide syndrome?
Could be, I guess.
I mean, I don't remember his name, but that would be a neat callback if it was that.
Yeah, it would be. I can't remember that doctor's name though.
I don't even remember. It's just doctor, and then it would be neat if they had the secretary with like the weird hair out there. You know?
Yeah.
You know, like that would be. Yeah, see, that would be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it past iReactions to drop something like that into
Exactly.
He knows his stuff.
Yeah, he does definitely.
Yeah. So he's in the waiting room, and Jillian shows up.
Yes.
From Jillian of the Spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And then who should show up there but the crying man himself, Rembrandt Brown.
Full-on crying man in loud suit and all.
and Quinn, like, he's like, oh my god, Rembrandt, you're here. And Remy, like, tries to palm him off as, like, a crazy fan.
Yes. Like,
And
man.
he even tries to, like, explain why he's seeing this, like, psychotherapist.
Right. I come here to get away from you people.
Yeah, exactly. But Quinn's, like, throwing out all the stuff about Jillian can, like, hear people and see people, and then he starts, like, rambling off stuff about Remy and his life, and, of course, everybody's just getting creeped out, and Remy just thinks, like, okay, this is really a psycho fan now.
Yes.
So, yeah, I didn't mind. I thought it was pretty good. So, Quinn, he rushes back home, and he begins work on a new timer. I guess he figures, like, he needs to get this figured out.
Yeah.
Because something's not right here. But no matter what he does, he cannot make the timer. He cannot get the equation to make any sense. And he certainly cannot solve it.
This is a neat sequence. Like, I could like feel the intensity of him, like, putting these parts together. You know, like, now we get to actually see him making the timer. Because we never saw it. You know, he just made it. It was done. So it's kind of neat to see this sequence, you know, in my head of him putting these components together and trying it. And it's like, it's not working. It just doesn't work. What's going on?
So, of course, he needs Arturo's help. But, you know, when he shows up at Arturo's house and the professor's pretty upset with him for you know, skipping out on class and all that, he's pretty hesitant about the whole thing. But being that this is his life's work, it's kind of, you know, he's sort of got some good grace there.
Yeah.
Some leeway with Arturo. So the two of them start working on it together. But, you know, the whole time Arturo's just thinking that he's going off the deep end, really.
And then, then they see the equation and they're like, well, like, this should work. This seems right. But then that part of the equation is like, it's not right. And, like, if that's not right, that means their scientific way of thinking about everything is wrong, you know? So something has been they've changed. Something has been changed with just this one part, leaving everything else intact. Because this, like he says in the script, this one part right here, if this isn't true, then what this scientific field of research thinks and this one thinks, that wouldn't even be happening. So someone's tampered, and that's when he starts to really understand and believe.
Yeah, and you could really picture Arturo in that scene, sort of looking at this equation and being astonished by it, just like he was in the pilot, and then being so frustrated with the fact that it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
He's looking at this thing in front of him that he has dedicated his life to, his life's work pretty much, and it just doesn't make sense. It's a perfect scenario to put Arturo in. So yeah, it's really, really great. But of course the police show up because Remy had called them after the antics over at the doctor's office.
Yes.
And Arturo helps him out. It's a little weird in that the police are looking for Quinn. So Arturo's like hide in the cupboard. But then he does this thing where he's like, "Oh, Mr. Mallory, he assaulted me," and ran out the back. And he's like, "Are you trying to help him or are you trying to make things worse?" Like,
I know. Well, he had to get the police out of the house. So,
yeah,
like,
true.
if he had like just said, "Oh yeah, come on in," like they would search and they'd find him in the cupboard or something, And who knows? Like he doesn't know if they had other police watching around the back, or so he didn't want to just send Mallory out right away. But then saying, "Oh yeah, he assaulted me," and then they run out after him. You can sort of assume they all go with him.
Yeah. So I guess that they kind of have a bit of a plan here in that they're going to go and meet at the campus, the university campus.
Right.
So Quinn, he's on the run. He's got to dodge the police and stuff, but he calls up Wade and tells her to meet them at the campus, and then he goes to find Remy at a restaurant.
Right.
Which I guess at some point, it's a bit of a retcon, but apparently Remy goes to this restaurant all the time or something like that.
Well, he said he I guess there was a time, I guess, after they slid that Remy said, "Oh yeah, after I, after I sang the anthem, I was going to go to this restaurant here and have myself a steak or whatever." So yeah, he remembered that part.
Remy's a bit freaked out, but as Quinn goes on, Remy starts to remember what is happening here.
Mm-hmm.
So as his memories start to come back to him and they head over to the university, the whole gang is together and Arturo arrives and he starts to remember. He sees Wade, and I think it's a great little monologue for Arturo where he talks about, Remy, you're like a brother to me. Wade, I love you like a daughter. And Remy has a great line too, because Arturo's like, "Oh, so you remember Quinn?" And he said, "Well, of course I remember him. That's why I want to kick his ass," or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's all these great lines that you want so badly to hear them say, because you can hear it in your head. You hear it in your head. It's like, oh, I want this to be real.
It's great to have all four of them back together. It's a good moment.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And they take it inside. Because naturally the police is still after them.
Right.
So they head into the classroom, Arturo's classroom. Arturo's been going over the equation, and he knows unequivocally there is something not right here.
Yeah.
He writes in a bunch of montages of old episodes, because Quinn starts to recount their adventures to sort of help them remember a bit more.
Right.
It does rely heavily on the fact that you would get the old actors back, of course. So.
Oh yeah.
Which I mean, like that's what we imagine, right? When we read this, we think of the original actors. Like this couldn't be a script that you could pick up and reboot the series with brand new actors playing these characters that we all know, right? So yeah, it does kind of rely on that fact. But yeah, there's a whole montage of season 1, season 2 episodes.
I mean, I guess you could, like, if you wanted to use new actors, I guess you could, but then you'd have to recreate all these old scenes.
Yeah.
Which is expensive. But, I mean, if you were putting the money in to reboot the series, I guess you could technically do it. And, like, then maybe you could do it because then you would have new actors, okay? But you'd sort of still be paying homage to the old actors and the old, series and everything. So I guess you could do it. But, yeah, I'm thinking original actors.
Yeah. And it takes us right up to rules of the game, pretty much. Season 1 premiere, which was, that was the premiere as it was aired.
Yeah. Not
as you and I discussed it, that was actually episode 2 of the season.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, it takes them right up to rules of the game, and suddenly they cannot remember. And they figure that they've found themselves at the point that reality has changed.
Yep.
They find themselves in this dark room, and they see themselves lying on tables. with a fifth table off on the edge. So, you know, this reality that they're in has now broken down.
Right.
So what do you think of this whole thing with this Cro-Mag showing up? Do you think it's a good idea to keep the Cro-Mag anonymous in a way? Because in the script, the Cro-Mag shifts between all these other side characters that we knew about, plus Quinn.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess you could have, like, tried to make it into one of the other Cro-Mags that they've met, you know, like Chromanus or someone like that. But I mean, I'm fine with it just being, you know, an indistinct guy, because what I liked about the original Cro-Mags as we saw them as in Invasion, they were they kind of were just like not that they were faceless, but you didn't really know one from the other. They just sort of all looked the same. You know, there was, you know, one that looked like it was obviously in charge, the one that creepily slid backward, you know, which we said was like, that's freaking creepy, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, there's nothing real distinctive about the individual ones. And it's like later on they made them more individual, which I didn't really like as much. And I like the idea that this Cro-Mag here would be more, I'm thinking more like the Invasion Cro-Mag. So it's more of a faceless character, and it could be a high-ranking individual. It might not be, but for whatever reason, it's just one of those Cro-Mags, I'm thinking. So I like the idea that it's not as individualized as the Cro-Mags became later when they became like the space Nazis, you know?
You're exactly right, because they did change them up dramatically.
Oh,
the second time we saw them. But in that first Invasion episode, they were apish.
Yeah.
They had those weird ponytails coming out the back and everything.
Exactly.
It was an interesting look, but the second time we saw them, and then from then on,
they were just,
there's that
they were just so much
Cro-Mag.
creepier then, you know? So much creepier. And like just being completely silent and everything was like,
Yeah, but he shifts between being Maggie and being Quinn, and he's taunting them.
Well, yeah, I like the idea. Like, I like when she, like, when the Cro-Mag sits up and it's like Maggie, because for a second you're like, wow, oh, it's Maggie? You know, because we don't know, like at this point, you know, we don't know that this is a, you know, like all a simulation, you know, that has happened. So we don't, is that really Maggie? But then when she shapeshifts, you're like, oh, okay, get it. You know, I see
what's going on here. I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing.
Okay.
But, you know, I've always been a big fan of Scooby-Doo.
Right.
And when they did the live-action movie, spoiler alert for the live-action Scooby-Doo movie.
No, I've seen it. I like it. I like the screen. I like it.
But the bad guy in the movie turned out to be Scrappy-Doo.
Right. Yes. That was, like, I really like that.
Yeah, it was that thing of saying, like, there's this character that not a lot of people liked, so let's turn him into the bad guy for the live-action movie.
Yeah, I like it.
So, yeah, it's that kind of thing, too, where it's just like Maggie sits up and you're like, Maggie's the bad guy.
I like that. Yep.
But yeah, of course it's a Cro-Mag.
Yeah.
And, and I thought it was a good way to sort of get the explanation out of this Cro-Mag shifting between all these people, you know, Maggie and then Quinn and then Mallory, Diana, Colin, and just taunting them with the explanation of what had been going on here. Pretty much it's that he had taken them, locked them up in this telepathic prison, because we know Cro-Mags are telepathic. That was set up in Invasion. The shapeshifting, I think, came later, though, right?
Yeah,
so
and like I said,
he has kept that.
I really think that the shapeshifting is not I would like to believe the shapeshifting is not shapeshifting, but just messing with your mind to make you see what they want you to see. I wish they had never made it into a shapeshifting thing, because it makes more sense with their mental powers that they would just make you see what they wanted you to see, not shapeshifting.
Yeah, that's the way I like to see it too.
Yeah.
But the plan was to create memories for Quinn to make him want to go home, so they would know where his home coordinates were, and then they could go and invade, pretty much.
Yep.
Because the Cro-Mags had felt that they had given up on that idea of going home. They felt that they would be lost forever. But after the events of As Time Goes By, which was the world where time ran in the opposite direction.
Yes.
And there was that big rip in reality in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
The tracker that they had put into his brain had absorbed a fragment of time.
Right.
So he was kind of stuck in this reality where, like, all possible events that any Quinn in any dimension could possibly have.
Yes.
You know, I don't know, it's a bit cumbersome.
A little bit,
of an explanation.
Yeah. I had to go over that part a couple times just to make sure I really understood what was going on.
Yeah, but somehow this Cro-Mag sort of was able to get in there and sort of bring like the really horrific experiences to the surface.
Like whatever the worst ones were, he just sort of like pushed those, forward so that that's what Quinn would experience and just like torture him kind of like that.
Yeah, so that's why, that explains why the professor died.
Yes.
Why Remy and Wade were in a Cro-Mag prison.
And and he's just, he throws out those things like he never wanted to save you. It's like he could care less about you. He didn't love you. He felt, it's like, oh, he's like digging it deep. And you could tell, like Wade just like, wow, how could you, like, how could you not, Yeah, and it's the same thing that we were like, like, how could you not go and save her? Why would you not do this, So, yeah, it's very intense.
And we get a good explanation for that, too.
Yep, we do.
It's just like, well, on some level, I must have known that this was all a big charade.
Right.
That this wasn't real.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was just me sort of trying to fight back against the reality of what was happening.
Exactly. Like almost trying to distance himself from his home, like he's trying to distance himself from Wade, who is from his home dimension. It's like, I want to get away from this, I don't want to lead anybody to that dimension.
It kind of does make me feel a bit like the Dream Masters, when they fight back.
Right.
The Dream Masters, like they will themselves awake.
Right, yeah.
But the Cro-Mag is left there to wallow in the hell that he created.
But you know what? Like when I read that, and they join hands or they, touch each other on the shoulder. It's like, you know what? To me though, it felt like something they would have done in Sliders.
Exactly.
Like they just come together and let's do this, and like it does draw back to the Dream Masters a little bit when they join together, but this was done so much better than Dream Masters. Like it's such a better story that I can forgive it being like cheesy like Dream Masters was, because of the story is so good and what they're doing in the story is just it just fits. It fits so much better than that did.
Yeah, and plus in the Dream Masters, I got really pissed off that the dude didn't get his comeuppance in the end.
Right, exactly.
They fought back, but nothing happened to the guy. He didn't die. He didn't get punished or anything like that. He sort of just walked free from it. And I was like, what? What a stupid way to end the episode.
I know, yeah.
But exactly. Here they come together, they will themselves out of it, and the Cro-Mag is left to suffer.
Yes.
So, it is, it is. It's got that impact behind it.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so they're all awake and they're in a cave, which I think is, it's that thing about the cave.
Yep.
Because I had to read it again. I was like, where are they? Are they in some sort of Cro-Mag lab or something? No, they're in a cave.
In a cave, which, really, it fits. It's good. It works, it works.
So they're going to make their way out, and Arturo actually has a bit of a fall, and Quinn's like, well, give him a bit of dignity here.
Yeah,
look, I'll help him up. You guys go ahead. And he just slugs Arturo in the stomach, throws him up against the wall.
I'm like, what the hell? What's
I know.
going on?
I was like, yeah, what is this? And then the big reveal. I know you're not our Arturo.
Yep.
You're that double from that bloody world, aren't you?
Yep.
And I'm like, yes, genius.
I know. It was. I'm like, oh, man, perfect.
And the other thing, too, is when he says, in the reality, they said that Remy was in the Navy. Right. Remy can't even swim.
Exactly.
Where would he get that from if not from you?
Exactly. See, that's what I like. He takes all those inconsistencies and he explains them away. It satisfies you, because that rules of the game is when we first learned that he was in the Navy, and so it's like, that was the point where we don't remember any of this, it's like, what's going on? So yeah, I like that. It was really good.
And he says, look, I've seen what it's like when we lose Arturo. I've seen what happens to the team.
Yep.
We all love Arturo.
Yep.
And since he's not here, well, man, you got to punch that ticket.
Yep.
Because I am not telling them what's going on here.
Right, and you're not either. Don't you say a thing,
I've got 3 years of god-awful memories in my head, so deal with it. So they all go up and they slide out together again. Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. It's just, I remember when I first read this, and I read this before I ever saw season 5, because this was years ago. And I was like, oh, this is so good. Why couldn't they do this? And now, after seeing the whole series again, including season 5, like I said, never saw. It's like, this just, I don't know, this really makes me feel good. You know, I'm like, oh, this is Sliders. This is how it should have been.
Our team of sliders out there, still lost, but together and
Yep.
going on their sliding adventures.
They're like, you know, they're back to being like a team. You know, they're working together.
It is a really good script, but, you know, like I said while we were talking, like, you'd want to get the original actors back, and
Yes.
at this point in time, you know, it's 2016, it's long removed from it, so all the actors are, like, way older now, so
Right.
it's probably beyond the point of actually being able to make something like this.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you were going to reboot the series, recast, but want to keep the original actors, I mean, this is an excellent script to sort of get that going.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. For sure.
So, yeah, I really liked it. It's a good story, and, yeah, it kind of leaves you feeling good, especially if you really did feel down and out about
Yes.
the later seasons.
A moment to catch my breath, if you please. Thank you, my... Oh! What?
That Cro-Mag was feeding details from your minds into mine. And in my mind, he added this little factoid. He said that Rembrandt had been in the Navy. Where would he get an idea like that? Remy can't even swim. He'd get that detail from someone who came from a world where his Rembrandt actually was in the Navy. From you. You're not our professor. You're the double. That Cro-Mag tried to steal our lives, but you stole the professor's first.
I'm sorry. I never thought...
Shut up and listen. I saw the future. I remember all of it. I've seen what happens without you. This team needs its Professor Arturo, and now that's you. Wade and Rembrandt, they can never know. Do you understand me? The professor left you big shoes to fill. Go on. They're waiting for us.
Alright, so we have a message from Earth Prime.
We do. This is a bit of a twist on our messages from Earth Prime. We found this on the Sliders.tv forums, posted by our good friend, iReactions.
Well, I guess just for a bit of context, this does have a bit of back and forth between iReactions and a friend of his named Laurie.
Yes.
So, in reading this back, we're going to do it quick impression style.
Right. So the part of Laurie will be played by Sean Connery.
And I'll be iReactions, and the part of iReactions will be played by Alan Rickman.
Awesome. All right.
So do you want to read the beginning part?
Yes.
For context, and then we'll get into this dialogue that he's written in here.
I guess the boys could take things in a more positive direction by talking about all the would-be Sliders revivals that never were. The feature film that never was, Tracy Torme's series finale, Jerry O'Connell's redemption as he made an effort to restore the original cast only to fail miserably. But wouldn't all these ultimately be miserable disappointments because they didn't happen and all we were left with was the Seer? God, this is so depressing. I'm going to call Laurie. Ring, 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 ring.
Laurie, I'm sad.
Is this about that fucking TV show?
The Sliders Rewatch podcast is ending, and it's going to end on a down note. How can it not?
Haven't you watched lots of TV shows that were all about bad situations with no way out and no hope at all? And then things either turned around or were conveyed in a fashion that made you okay with it?
Unless there's a 19th episode of Sliders I missed because I was obsessing over your problems, it's not going to happen.
It's been 16 years. Why are you not over this yet?
The Sliders were my friends, Laurie. My favorites. That's why I made you one of them in a fanfic. A fanfic in which you made TV tropes.
That was super flattering. Are the podcasters seriously saying their last Sliders podcast is going to be a death march?
No, they say they'll find an upbeat note.
Well, trust them. If they weren't good, you wouldn't spend so much time writing up factoids for them.
And scene. So there you go. We appreciate that. We definitely appreciate that. And yeah, we do appreciate the factoids, you know? We do.
Yeah, I know. He has been great sending us all the info just to sort of help us round out the episode. Yeah, get the context of where things were coming from and how the show evolved behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You know, and why the story went the way it did. But, you know, the fact that he's kind of upset that we're ending our Sliders rewatch.
It's a big compliment, you know,
Yeah.
very big compliment.
And we felt that, you know, his script was a good way to, go out on a bit of a high note. It was a good story that sort of, left us in a good mood.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a good finale, you know, it sets things up for a future for anyone who wants to continue, you know, like it's just, it leaves you with a great taste in your mouth, unlike the Seer.
Yeah, so it's kind of our way of saying thanks to him for everything he's done for us while we're doing the rewatch. So, yeah, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next time on the Rewatch podcast, well, let's say the next episode of the Sliders Rewatch. Ooh, what's this? We would love to do an episode for his other script, Sliders Reborn. It's not finished. A huge chunk of it is up on earthprime.com, but it's not actually finished yet. So when he finishes that up, we would love to do an episode for that script as well.
We might have to do a couple, just because I think there's 4 or 5, and I assume they're all gonna be about 47 pages each, I imagine.
Yeah, I haven't read it before, so I don't know.
Right, and see, now Sliders Reborn is totally unrelated to slide effects and you know what we've been talking about. So that's why it's like, well, slide effects sort of fits here because it is the series. It seems like it's part of the series, and this is going to be like a reboot, like a reborn, like it says here, rebirth. So that's like we'll do that separately once it's all finished. You know, we'll go ahead and plan that, and we'll get those episodes out eventually. And of course, you know, you'll hear about it because we'll post about it.
But as it is, the next episode of the Rewatch podcast, we will be beginning our Lois and Clark rewatch, and we'll be kicking that off with an episode 0 to sort of just give our little, you know, backstory and history with the TV show, and you know, our respective relationship to the show going forward. And then we'll be releasing episode 1 after that, which will be the pilot episode, and then we'll be pretty much back to our old format, 2 episodes at a time, because they had full 24 episode seasons for the full 4 seasons. So.
Yeah, just for people who are going to follow us over, it's like we started this podcast a little bit after Sliders Cast started. You know, they started theirs, and then the Rewatch podcast came along a little bit after that. You know, so we had 2 podcasts going on. We had the Sliders Cast, we had the Sliders Rewatch, you know, and now we're going to do the rewatch with Lois and Clark, and there is actually a Lois and Clark podcast that started just a few months ago as well. So it's kind of like I think we got our finger on the pulse of the fan community.
Great minds think alike. As soon as we announce that we're going to do Lois and Clark rewatch, bang, up comes this other podcast.
I know, it was kind of funny.
Can we never get in first? Awesome stuff, and looking forward to it.
Exactly. Yeah, I am too. Like, ever since we announced it, I'm like thinking, oh gosh, all right, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to this. I remember this. I remember that. And yeah, so, and we'll see. You know, I don't think we're going to have the great amount of deleted scenes and behind the scenes info as we did on here, because I haven't found a site quite like Dimension of Continuity for Lois and Clark. So it's gonna be a little bit different. You know, we won't have all the trivia and behind the scenes stuff, but we'll still have some quick impressions in there, and of course our discussion and synopsis and all that.
Yeah, we'll find plenty of stuff to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for this final episode of the Rewatch podcast featuring Sliders. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast, and follow the show on Twitter at rewatchpod. You can visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has some of our favorite links there, such as Dimension of Continuity, Earth Prime, and the active forum over at sliders.tv.
And as always, you can reach out to us by sending an email or recording a voice message and sending it to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. It's always very helpful. And you can help support the Rewatch Podcast by heading over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast, where you can make a monthly contribution as little as $1. And as of now, our entire back catalogue is up on YouTube. Just search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Cool.
So yes, very exciting.
Yeah.
So thank you for sticking with Sliders with me, Tom.
Oh yeah, definitely.
5 long seasons. It's been fantastic.
Like I said,
I liked season 5 more than I thought I would. You know, it's definitely not up to the caliber of, you know, how it all started, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the show overall as a whole, you know, and I'm glad to have finally, you know, seen the season 5 episodes.
Well, I will just say, until next time, Professor Arturo, thank God you're here.
Thank God indeed. We gotta slide.
The Rewatch podcast is not associated with NBC Universal, St. Clair Entertainment, Fox, or Sci-Fi Channel. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes, as provided in United States Code, Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com.
Copyright 2016, The Rewatch Podcast.
Sliders.
Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Cory.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Cory. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/rewatchpodcast.
Thanks, everyone.